Hey, what's going on, Myles?
Hey, Brian. Happy Friday.
Oh, yeah, no, happy for people who enjoy Fridays.
Yep.
Yep. Myles, we're going to make this quick. I just put a pizza in the oven. The timer is going to go off in about 17 minutes. Then we're going to call this quits because, got to eat that shit when it's hot.
What pizza is it?
It's a fictional pizza. Just go along with it.
Yep. So you can put anything you want on it. What's on it, Brian?
I mean, a little bit of everything. You know what? Whatever the chat wants. Because I'm not in the mood to argue today, and so whatever the chat thinks is right that belongs on my pizza is going on the pizza, and then we can all eat the fictitious slice together.
Okay. Next 10 ingredients that are put in the chat goes on the pizza. Game on.
You know it's going to be
pineapple is first. Someone said pineapple.
That's fine. I'm down with pineapple.
Someone said filleted cats, but I think that's a different conversation.
That might be, but however, you never know. We could have some cannibals in the crew. Yep.
We've got pickles here. Listen, anchovies.
I've wondered if pickles, so you've had cheeseburgers before and you put pickles on it, right? It's like,
no, I take them out.
Go fuck yourself. Like pickles and cheese go together. Shouldn't pickles on pizza be good? Could that be a good thing?
Okay, Skittles. So I'm really glad that I think Skittles. Rat Balls just missed the cut. Good. Rat Balls just missed the cut because there was so many amounts of pineapple.
Okay.
And Skittles.
Dude, James Wolfe is eating by himself. Anchovies, olives, and prawns. You are in the other room, my friend. We're not even sitting at the same table with you. All right, man, let's do this thing.
Let's do it.
This is PSVR GAMESCAST Live. We film live every single Monday, Wednesday, and 2 Eyes Friday right here on PSVR without Parole. We do it live for your viewing pleasure, 6 p.m. Eastern. You can watch it right here on YouTube, this channel, Without Parole. If you don't like watching with your eyes, like watching with your ears instead, you can go over to podcast services of your choice. Thanks to our good friend Rypop, who uploads this on podcast services of your choice. And if the live thing is just a little bit too long for you, don't worry. Sci-Fi Game Cat Henry, our good friend, puts timestamps into the show after it's over. My name is Brian Paul from this channel right here, PSVR without Parole, and this gentleman over here on the other side of the pond, but only for the next few hours, it's my friend Myles Dyer from youtube.com/Myles.
Hello, Brian. Hello, Game Cats. Hope you are all doing well and had a good week. The weekend is closing in, and yes, as Brian hinted, I will be coming across the ocean for vacation, and I will be going to the lovely state of Alabama to see a friend. And it meant no Let's Plays this weekend unless I can convince them to buy a PSVR2 when I'm there. They actually recently bought a PS5, so maybe. I don't know. Can you actually get PSVR2s in stores now? You can, right? In the States?
Yeah. I mean, no one's buying them. I'm sure they're everywhere.
Okay, maybe I'll do that then. But yeah, so it meant doing a lot more Let's Plays during the week. So on Tuesday, I did a 9 till 5. I mean, I say this, Brian works 6 a.m. till 6 a.m. most days.
You're exaggerating, but I appreciate it.
Yeah. But so I worked 9 to 5, and then at 5:15, I did my first of 3 Let's Plays just to get them out the way. I say get out the way. I wanted to play these games, but I wanted to make sure I did them before I left.
Listen, I understand. It's like when you have to call your parents, and even though you love your parents to death, you still do it to kind of get it out of the way, right? I mean, I think we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I think you could say it like that. Yeah.
I hope my mom's not watching.
Hi, Mum. But it kind of it's knowing that when I get back from America, it will be towards the end of September, and then we're in October where we've got an onslaught of games. So the 3 I played on Tuesday were Broken Edge. Obviously, Brian done a good review there.
Well, according to you,
I had a good time with it when I started playing multiplayer, but without getting into a massive conversation about it. The convoluted menus. The tutorials do teach you a lot and repeat a lot, but I felt the whole over-encompassing goal of the game was not clear, and so
I like the
I don't know.
concept, man. I really do. I wish they could almost take another, pardon the pun, stab at it, because I feel like there's something here. It just didn't resonate with me for the hours that I stuck with it. So, Xavier,
I think it is.
Xavier in the chat says, "Hi, Brian's mom."
With that, then I went on to play Ruins Magus. So I don't know how far you got into the game, and hopefully this isn't a spoiler, but I came across some like massive dragon thing. Mm-hmm. Like, did you get to that boss?
Yeah, no, I finished the game.
Yeah. I'm sure it's not that far in, but yeah, I mean, I'm having a good time with it. The characters are annoying and bug the hell out of me, and there's that weird half man, half goat, half tortoise thing that works in the shop that freaks me out. But apart from that, the combat feels decent. Parrying with the shield. If you hold L1 at the right time, you deflect the whatever they fire at you back, and that feels amazing. Like, I don't know. It's just in the whole VR space, 3D space, and like getting the shield at the right angle, and even with some of the bigger bosses, when they throw loads of debris at you, you literally have to deflect off all the individual bits of debris. So there's some really cool stuff there. I am going to keep playing it, but as you alluded to, it doesn't. It just kind of wears out. It's just more and more of the same. So, because I think there's like 25 missions. That's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah. And it's and I did love the combat, but man, that's kind of all there is. And after a while, I feel like the more you play this game, the more it wears on you, which is unfortunate.
And then finally on Tuesday, I played Alvo just because the servers went down when I was meant to be playing it before. I'm having a really good time with it. My issues were with some of the controls, but now it's clicked with me. No problems at all, and I'm loving it. And then a few hours ago, today, just before the show, I played Hellsweeper, which I know we'll talk a bit about in a bit. But had a really good time with it.
Great. Well, that's awesome, man. So everybody, if you missed today's live stream, make sure you go over to Myles' channel, youtube.com/Myles, the easiest URL to remember, I think, on the planet. But it's always a good time, and just remember that, you're going to be gone for, a week? Is that how long you're gone for?
Yeah, about just over a week and that.
So we shouldn't be expecting any content for the next 7 days or so.
I am going to be doing my Miles Die live next Wednesday because I'm going to be taking my laptop with me, and then depending on scheduling, I might be able to do one of these, but we'll wait and see. But yeah, do subscribe to my channel because in October there's a dead ton of horror games coming out, and people love watching me play horror. And for me, I'm always like, I'll do a horror game, like I'll spread it out like once a month just so I have enough time to recover. But I just know there is no taking cover this October. Nope. It's not even one a week. It's going to be more than that. I'm really looking forward to a lot of these games, except one that is going to be absolutely horrific, which is Madison VR. It'll be a good time for you guys.
You've worked it up so much in your head that there's no way this game can be nearly as scary as you've sort of built it up to be.
It can be. It can be as scary as I think it's going to be.
We'll see.
We will see.
Super Speed Scooter Shop in the chat with a $10 tip says Sony signed for my return August 1st. Let's see. That was 55 days ago or so. And I have proof of delivery. So I'm assuming this he's talking about his PSVR2. I followed up 10 times. Was told that it takes time. Still no replacement. And they're telling me it's over 30 days. Sorry about your luck. It wasn't until I hit about the 90-day period where Sony actually started caring about my headset and said, "Yeah, where is that?" And we're gonna look into that and see if we can do something about it. I would give them another 20 days or so and then start bugging them again, and hopefully just like mine, they just sent me a new headset, which was good because the old one smelled a lot like Brian Sweat. Brian Sweat's not pretty, I promise you. Matthew Long in the chat says Sony returns are disgusting. Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like Meta, for all the issues they might have, way better customer service, better on refunds, better on replacements, better on everything. So Sony needs to maybe get off their high horse. I know we're going to talk a little bit about Sony later in the show, but I think some of Jim Ryan's comments during the investor call kind of clues us into where Sony's head is at. Spoilers, it's up their ass.
And I know I've mentioned this before, Brian, but like the PlayStation Stars loyalty scheme. Yes. Like if only that was the promo, that every time you logged in you had that as the intro. That'd be amazing.
I'd care about it. Finally.
Yeah. But the level 4 tier, when you finally get to it, the premium tier on it is you get fast track customer service. I've not worked out how that works. Like when I was trying to get my audio 3D audio headphones fixed, had to go through the usual way, and then they told me, oh no, you have to buy some new ones, don't get replacement cups for it, which I did. I've told this story before, but like that was just another example of like what is Sony doing when it comes to customer service. Even for that, when they advertise it, like we're going to be offering this to reward the loyalty. But yeah.
Samson143 VR with a $2 tip. Hey Myles, I want to talk to Samson. Fly to the moon like that bitch Alice Cramden. It never gets old. Old. No.
Never.
He says, "Happy Friday, VR fam. Happy Friday to you too, my friend." I'll tell you, I was in a miserable mood all day fucking long, and even Myles and I get on a call like a few minutes before the show begins, make sure we've got all of our P's crossed and our T's dotted. We make sure that we're all set and ready to go. Still in a bad mood. The second we start this thing, role reversal. I swear, you guys put me in a good mood, and so thank you for that. I really appreciate you guys. Myles, you mentioned Hellsweeper, that you did a live stream of that. Obviously, we don't have to go into details. Wes and I already talked about the issues that Hellsweeper has. But before we do get into Mixed Realms, I don't even know if we want to call it an apology, or just maybe an explanation of what happened. What was your experience? How did the live stream go? Are you enjoying the game despite obviously the massive rough edges that it has?
So mixed feelings with the game, but definitely leaning in the positive direction. And it's left me with a big question that I'll throw your way at the end, and the chat. For me, alarm bells with graphic, like the resolution, will always flare up when it's on the title screens, when you've got simple text graphics of the publisher. Now, I've mentioned already that with Firewall Ultra, I was like, is that background like glowing green? It's not black. Like when it says Sony Interactive Entertainment, like that famously is the white text with black background, and it was like glowing green. And that's when I sort of start having concerns. With Hellsweeper, I could bear it was rough, man. Yeah. It was rough. And then when I went into the menus, especially where you're in the tutorial when you have to walk up to the next like floating squares with the menus on it and telling you what to do next, from not that far away, I couldn't read the writing. And I'd heard all the hype. I say hype. I heard all the commotion about the graphic fidelity and stuff. And so you go in there going, okay, how bad is it? It was worse than I was expecting. And it was literally like looking through treacle. I'm even like, and this is the thing, is like, so the start of the stream was just incredibly negative. Because I think it's the worst PSVR2 game in terms of resolution.
Sure. I think I'd have to agree with you.
We talk about the issues of Horizon, in the distance, and, Green Hell. But stuff up close looks fine. This was, your hands look okay, but everything just looked absolutely abysmal. And I kept taking the headset off and looking at the social screen, and I was like, wow, that looks a lot nicer. I might play the game like this. So that, just to get out of that the way, it looks terrible. However, you're clearly in a very beautifully constructed world that I want to be able to see. Looking at the monsters after you kill them up close, like there's a lot of detail there, which makes it even more frustrating. And this is what happens with these games. If games are terrible all over, you don't give a shit. We're like, yeah, it looks bad, but whatever. The reason we go on about it is there's something great here. In terms of the gameplay, I never played Sorrento, but I always heard great things about it. And this game, just through and through, feels amazing. From whether it's reloading the weapons, the way that you bind weapons to, like, depending which direction you swipe, if you want it to be a sword, the fact that you can levitate items and like get the sword spinning round and round to like hack enemies up, and there's just so much there. I feel like a complete idiot in battle. Like, I feel like a walking punching bag. However, when I did the advanced traversal and started wall running, and then I did the backflip in the air, oh my god. Like, I know you could do that in Sorrento. Yep. It was just incredible. And it made me feel a bit in the stomach. I'm someone that has S-tier VR legs now, and I didn't always have it. But this game is really pushing me to it. I'm definitely used to it now. And so, yeah, overall, I've had a great time with it. A really, really good time with it. But the frustration is there, which is I'm traversing this amazing world. I wish I could just see it with clarity. And it clearly can be done. So, two questions. Firstly, the one that I said I was going to ask, which was, what do I want to do, like, after this live stream? I want to go and play it again. I want to keep playing it. That's how I feel. But, you know, if I keep playing it, I'm going to have a great time, and I'm going to get to play the full game and keep, dying and building up my permanent stats so I can get further and further in the game. But I feel like maybe I need to wait until the graphics are fixed so that when I do experience the game, I experience it how it was meant to be. Because I feel like if I keep playing the game now, I'm going to enjoy it. I really want to play it now. Right. But then when they fix it, I'll play it a little bit more. But I just want that first experience to be exactly what it is. So right now, I feel a bit conflicted because it's not a case of Switchback, for example. I was like, it was all right. I'm like, I'm not playing this again until they fix it, because I was like, I'm not feeling immersed. Because of this kind of screen door effect with the bad resolution. This, although it looks terrible, I still feel immersed because of all the traversal. So it's a slightly different situation. How do you feel about the game? Is it a game you're going to keep playing, or is it a game that you think, actually, I might wait for the graphical patch?
It all depends on what happens time-wise. You and I were talking before the show about a game that we're playing right now for review, and I think that game is ready to go, and we and I should spend my time focused on that and kind of clear the way for all these crazy horror games that are coming in October. And because I don't, but at the same time, I saw in the chat somebody said it took Mixed Realms a year to get Sorrento patched up to the way it should have been at launch. So you're rolling the dice one way or the other. Do I really want to play this in the state that it's in? Well, yeah, because it seems like a really fun game, but also, do I really want to have to replay it to review it after the patch goes? No, I don't really want to do that either. So I'm gonna have to play it by ear. That said, let's get into the response. Sorry, more sirens on my end. Let's get into the response that Mixed Realms gave about this kind of botched launch that they were obviously very well aware was a thing. Also, Myles Ryan with the $5 tip says, "Hope this makes your mood even better." Thank you very much. Thank you, Ryan. And I want to make sure we don't get too far behind on tips. Man, Bear, Pig, Game Cat. He does exist, Myles. With a $2 tip says, becoming a trend, under par PSVR2 games looking bad. Sadly, that is true. However, this explanation, I think, actually clues us into why. So here's the response from Mixed Realms. They say, this is a rather long message, so please bear with us. Firstly, we would like to address the early reviews we've seen regarding the graphical quality of Hellsweeper VR on PSVR2. We genuinely appreciate your candid feedback and understand the concerns raised. We apologize for the shortcomings. We'd also like to offer some insight into the challenges that we faced. As many of you know, our journey with Hellsweeper began more than 3 years ago, with the conceptual phase spanning over 3.5 years. So conceptually, this game started 3.5 years ago. The pandemic threw a curveball our way, significantly slowing our progress due to the shift to remote work and the associated communication barriers. The key factor as to why the graphical quality is not as good as it should be was down to a decision we made at the start of development to use what is known as the standard pipeline in Unity. Many of the technological improvements, such as foveated rendering, have occurred in another pipeline, the Universal Render Pipeline, URP, While the VR landscape enjoys many such beneficial tech these days that enables developers to utilize higher fidelity graphics, this was very much experimental, less stable, and less reliable years ago. And the frantic and fast-paced action of Hellsweeper made it difficult for us to work with. The decision was rooted in our belief that action and gameplay are at the heart and soul of Hellsweeper. With that said, teams change and adapt. We are committed to making this shift in a future update. It was regretfully something we could not prioritize at launch, given how deep into the development cycle we already were, and with an already existing focus on developing the mechanics and gameplay in mind. Another point we'd like to address is the blame directed at Unity, as suggested by some. Recent criticisms of Unity, especially after their pricing announcement, which for the record we're also against, have muddied the waters. In truth, our challenges with adapting Hellsweeper VR to PSVR2 were largely independent of Unity. It boiled down to the unfortunate timing of PSVR2's announcement during our development phase and our subsequent decision-making. In this, we are blaming ourselves more than anybody. We want to reassure you that our commitment to improve the graphics for PSVR2 remains unwavering. Those who have known us since our Sirento days know that we listen to the community and are tenacious in our dedication to constantly improving the game. Blah 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 blah. They're rolling out a graphics update Q4 of this year, and then more graphics updates next year. But I think there's so much to unpack here. I think a lot of people, Myles, forget how the pandemic influenced game design. Games that we're seeing now were developed primarily during COVID, where studios had to figure out how to make this shift. And we're seeing the first games from these studios post COVID, and it's showing. That's number one. But number two, I think the Unity thing is really important as well, because there were claims that Unity couldn't even do foveated rendering. I've checked with developers; it's obviously not true. But there's a little blame on Sony here, and there's a little confusion with Unity, because you have to develop a game a certain way in order to use foveated rendering dynamically in the right way, and you can flip a switch in order to make it happen. But then once you flip that switch, you got to go back and change a ton of other shit. And then Sony, of course, being so cagey about their PSVR2 plans, this was all happening during this time. They were talking about PSVR2, but weren't really getting dev kits out there and not really saying when it was going to happen. And so these guys were really at the mercy of so many factors. And I'm not going to say it excuses any of it, because again, you're still responsible for the game you release. But unfortunately, they're not the publishers of this game, and I do think at a certain point you just have to fulfill the publishing deal that you've signed, whether the game is ready to ship or not, and that's really sad, unfortunately. That was a lot to unpack. Sorry, Myles.
No. It was. I started reading the statement alongside you, and then I realised I was reading the wrong one, because I was reading a long one on Twitter. And then at the bottom of it, it goes, for an in-depth look at our challenges and plans, we invite you to our Discord to view our full statement. I was like, Jesus Christ. Look, I know this is going to annoy some people. To their credit, they could have easily lent on Unity with everything else. Like, Unity is like the best scapegoat to use right now with everything else they've got going on. But the fact they say, no, we're to blame, fair enough. That's bold of them and to say. But as has been communicated in the chat again and again, did they not know? Because it's the way it's phrased of like, we appreciate all the candid feedback, but it's like, you must have known. And it's the question I've had with previous games, with Switchback. Did they not? They never said it was a surprise, but it's like, did they know? And I think the last point you made, Brian, about the fact that it's to do with deals you've got with a publisher. When the publisher and developer are separate, you might go, well, surely they could just chat about it. But it's like, when there are contractual agreements, there's kind of this standoff, and it's not like a hostile standoff where the publishers are like, oh, we're never going to work with you again. But it's kind of like, the reason deadlines are there is because this game eventually needs to come out. And it might be that you can delay it, but then you're not going to get the funding, that you need to keep going. And so there is a lot of, balancing things up. Going back to my experience, like, this isn't a case of like, oh, it doesn't look as good as it could be, which is how I feel about like Green Hell and stuff like that. This is like, it looks like looking through treacle. It looks absolutely abysmal.
You said this is the second time you said this. It's like looking through what?
Treacle. Do you know what treacle is? Is treacle a British only thing?
I don't know, man. I sometimes I find out that it's not just a British thing and I'm just dumb.
No, so treacle's like syrup.
Okay, yeah,
you have syrup.
I mean,
you have syrup.
We have molasses, we have syrup, but like treacle. Somebody in the chat back me up here. We don't have treacle, do we?
Yeah.
Oh no, Ace feels yelling treacle. It seems like he's happy about it. I don't.
Okay.
Aceville's never on my side anymore. Remember when we were friends, Aceville?
Yeah. We call it golden syrup over here. It's really nice. Golden syrup's amazing. But what? Oh, here we go on Google. What is the American name for treacle? It's akin to American molasses. Is it molasses?
We have molasses. We have honey.
I've never heard of
we
molasses.
have all sorts of viscous, sticky substances. In fact,
specifically the blackstrap variety, which is stronger,
after the
thicker,
show.
and more bitter. Okay. There we go.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm really glad we cleared that up, because otherwise, it's like Myles kept going on about treacle and we had no idea what he was on about.
I was going to let it go once, but I can't let it go twice.
No.
Yeah.
All right. It's like looking through a stained glass window, Brian. Does that work?
You know what else works? Is moving on to the next topic.
It doesn't look very good, Brian.
Yeah, it's a fun game. It looks terrible. As everybody in the chat, like you said, has said, this statement should have come out before the game released. Obviously, this was intentional. Again, we don't know if it has to do with the publishing deal, but I don't think anybody wanted to prohibit pre-orders. Nobody wanted to say, "Hey, don't buy our game."
Yeah.
For the months leading up to the release, it's easier to ask for an apology afterwards than
forgiveness rather than permission.
That's
the classic. Yeah.
You got it right. That must be a British thing. Macho, the real estate procrastinating game cat right in the chat with the $2 tip says, then you should. I'm trying to decipher this. You should fucking tell us this before we pre-order. A-holes. Yeah, he's not happy. No one's happy.
Yeah. I was trying to remember what the second question I was going to be asking about.
Oh, Jesus. There's more to this conversation.
No. But it's a smaller point. It was kind of like, do you agree with me on this? From playing about an hour and 15 of it, my takeaway was, if they fix the graphics, I think this is going to be a top 5, top 10 contender easily for PSVR2.
It's certainly top 25. It's the locomotion is just so much fun. Being able to, it's the same thing I felt about Sirento. Was, you jump up in the air, you do a wall run, and you come off the wall run and do a backflip. You hit bullet time. You're doing slow motion. You're upside down in the air. You're shooting enemies in the air, and then you pull out your sword, come out of bullet time, and slice an enemy in half on the ground with your sword. Like, that is fucking Dante from Devil May Cry right there. Except you get to do it in first-person VR. I am going to have to keep playing to find out if I think it's a top 10 game, but definitely I think right now top 25.
Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Yeah. I feel like I missed tips because I was just kind of all over the place for a little bit. Danny Rama Pajama with the 5 quid says, Funktronic says there's a gaze bug that breaks Unity DFR implementation. Who are these devs who say it works? Can anyone name one Unity dev with DFR? You're going to have to give me some time on that. So, what else we got? Did I get? I think we're caught up. Sweet. Myles, it's not frequently that we feature other YouTube channels on Without Parole, because I like to put the work in and make these videos myself, and have my own opinions on these things. However, somebody from a French YouTuber who I'm not familiar with, but apparently I should be, because she has like 250,000 subscribers.
Where?
What's that?
I said where?
France? Her name is Carol.
Where is yes in French?
Remember when we used to have fun on the show, Myles?
No.
This video that I'm playing right now is from Carol Quintain. She's a French YouTuber. Does a lot of Resident Evil stuff, and she gets to go hands-on with the game. And this is footage apparently from her playthrough. I believe it's in French. How am I supposed to figure this out, Myles?
Well, I just told you one of the words, so at least you understand that now.
All right. Well, we can figure out one of the words that she says in this video. However, this is more gameplay than we have ever seen of Resident Evil 4 VR. And so we figured we'd show it off a little bit here. The link for Carol Quintain's video is in the description below. Did not ask permission to use this video, so my apologies. Again, it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. If I could figure out how to say that in French, we'd be good to go. But yeah, so the full video is in the link for that's in the description below. Go check out her channel. And but this is interesting, Myles, because not only are we getting a look at some different environments, some nice lighting here shining through the windows, but later in this video, we do see Leon do a roundhouse kick. And my question had been, since playing the Quest version of Resident Evil 4, are we going to stay in first person the entire time? And the answer is no, you're not. We're going to be pulled out into third person to see Leon do the roundhouse kick. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it, but at least we still get to do the roundhouse.
Yeah.
There was a part of me that was like, well, they can replace the roundhouse with just like a massive punch that you see in first person. We don't have to spin the body around, or maybe if you could, I'd be fine spinning around. That'd be great.
I mean, Chuck Norris famously said that when you do a proper roundhouse kick, it is an out-of-body experience. So maybe it's a nice tribute to that. So yeah. But I tell you what, Brian. Did we ever conclude whether Resident Evil Village had foveated rendering? I assume it didn't.
I believe it does.
Okay, because looking at this, I mean, in the scenes where it's in the dark and you've got darkness around, it's easier to get away with it. But in the lit areas, I can't see evidence of foveated rendering. Like normally, you can see the patchiness of like where they're looking, and I can't seem to see it on this footage. So
yeah, I think we had a nice 4K screenshot or a nice 1440 screenshot where we were able to see it not in motion. I think in motion you don't see that stuff quite as much.
True, but it's just so beautiful to look at. Capcom are just S tier when it comes to environments. Like just the rooms. It's not just like, oh, it's a dilapidated room with a couple of broken bits that have clearly been placed in there. It's just, it looks lived in. It feels like a real location. Just the set designs, if we call it that, it's just unlike anything else.
It's a proper AAA flat screen game that's been brought to VR. Like it's a treat, man. It doesn't happen very often, and so it's not difficult to appreciate the finer things here when we look at this footage and see things that we don't typically see in more indie games. It's just a look that we really haven't seen outside of Call of the Mountain and Resident Evil Village. And so, dude, I was sort of okay with this kind of coming out whenever. Like if this ended up being a holiday 2024 title, I'd be like, whatever, man. Like I guess we'll play it holiday 2024. However, seeing this footage and just remembering how great that village was, I'm really glad that we know it's coming winter, whatever that means. So sometime between January and March, basically. So I'm really happy because I don't think I want to wait much longer to play this. Yeah, very pretty game.
Yeah.
And that kind of brings us to main topic, at least, of today's show, and that is that the investor call transcripts, I would say, I guess, of Jim Ryan's the investor call transcripts. Sony's investor call transcripts. I should have written this down ahead of time, Myles, because this is way more difficult to say than I was thinking. Have been released, and this is and we got some kind of insights into Jim Ryan, into Sony, into their strategy for PlayStation 5 and PlayStation VR2. And you sent me two quotes that we thought were probably the most important to talk about, correct?
Yeah, and these words, these were actually when I was tuning into Mystic Ryan's nice. Let's Talk PlayStation that I watch every Friday. It's an amazing PlayStation show. And
Mystic is good. I gotta start watching him again. It's been a little while since I tuned in, but he's good.
He's just like not for sensationalism. Even when he talks about stories that would be so easy to like lean into, sort of either tribalism or going for the sensationalism of a story, he's just like, no, this is what's going on. Like, he's very particular with stuff, and so I think he's a really good part of the community, and he's a fan of VR. He loves playing PSVR, PSVR2.
That's good.
Yeah. So yeah, he was. This was one of the stories he talked about, and that was how I sort of found out about the transcript. And so yeah, there were these two bits he spoke about that straight away. I was like, yeah, we need to look at this a bit more.
Take us through this, Myles. What's the first one is about PlayStation 5 specifically, correct? Do you want to read this?
Absolutely. So the question he was asked was, despite the fact that you sold less consoles than expected this year, your profitability has been pretty good. You've been able to leverage the PS4 and keep selling, which is encouraging. And he said, yes, profitability is at an all-time high. First, the amount of time people are spending on the PS5 is massive. Second, the level of engagement on PS4 is significant. Third, and this is the really big thing I wanted to talk about, he goes, third, the demand for PS5 is such that we don't need to promote it at all. He says, I don't think there is a single PS5 being promoted anywhere in the world. So this must have come from last year before they did the sort of like everything's back in stock now. We are now closing on 20 million units sold, and we are completely out of stock. There are big markets in Europe, the Middle East and Russia where we haven't gotten started yet. So the business is structurally strong right now. We don't expect this to change. We will see PS4 engagement waning as the years pass, but it's still an extraordinary balance. So just to repeat that third bit again. Third, the demand for PS5 is such that we don't need to promote it at all.
All right. So yeah, this definitely gives us obviously we know when it happened, but it gives us a better idea when it happened, because this is because if you Google right now, you get the answers from July of this year, and we've already doubled that number of PlayStation 5 sold. So we've got 40 million as of July, which is obviously, very easily going to hit 50, I believe, by the end of the year. So PS5s are still selling like crazy. But, do you think this is the right strategy? Like, this is sort of something we speculated about before, and it's crazy to find out that we were actually right about this. Because I was basically like, well, what's the point in promoting PlayStation 5 if you're already selling every single one that you're making? That's it. That was the only way I could defend Sony. I was like, well, you're just wasting your money advertising this thing. But now we're 2 years in, and they've got these huge AAA games that certainly have to. They're not ready now. Spider-Man's just about ready, but they've got 20 plus first-party studios working on 20 to 30 first-party games. When do you say, listen, even if we're selling all of the units that we're selling and every single system we make is being sold, when do you say, but we got to think about the future, and we got to worry about just people, the mind share of saying, well, listen, these are the reasons that you should be considering buying a PlayStation 5 instead of an Xbox Series X when you go buy your system, because soon enough, PlayStation 5s are just going to be, I think we're already at the point where PlayStation 5s are just everywhere. You can just go and buy one. But soon enough, the Xbox is going to put up a fight. And I think with Game Pass, they're putting up a fight. I think with Starfield, they're putting up a fight. And you can't, it's not just good enough to be in the lead. You got to do everything you can to keep reminding people why the correct choice, according to Sony, would be buying a PlayStation 5. How long can they possibly keep up this strategy for, Myles?
Until Spider-Man 2 comes out. I think Spider-Man 2 could quite possibly be the biggest game of the year. Whenever they do trailers for that game, it smashes records for like the most watched trailer for a game. I think Starfield is going to be obviously up there as well. It'll be interesting to see. Again, this was at a time, as you spoke about, when they were sold out of everything. So why market when you've sold out? There was supply issues. As for the fact that we know there are all these developers and all these AAA games being worked on that we don't know about, obviously it's a huge disappointment at the showcase at the start of the year. I think this is just a hangover, and it's not a full excuse, but we tend to forget about COVID and the pandemic. The impact of that isn't just instantaneous. It's not that, okay, the pandemic's here, so now there's problems, now it's gone, now we're back to normal.
Right.
There's a knock-on effect. There was a lot of games that were getting wrapped up. They were able to sort of delay a little bit, but when it came to doing new projects, that can have a massive knock-on effect there. So for me, I think Sony will just be looking at the stats. They'll be looking at the marketing spend and looking at the capture rate of the market. They'll still see how many units they're selling until they've got these next big announcements to make. I mean, it's not just Spider-Man 2. Final Fantasy Rebirth is going to be absolutely huge as well. Yeah. So they do have these big titles, and I think Final Fantasy Rebirth is coming just after Christmas. So I just think that they're at a stage now where they know every quarter, every 5 months, 4 to 5 months, as long as you've got like one big game, you can use that as sort of like the heartbeat to just keep things going, because all the other games are kind of satellite content that people will still invest into, whether it's for the PlayStation Portal that's coming out or PSVR2. And so we've always said this is the generation where Sony are going to be quietly confident, to our annoyance. But the reality is it's working. So why change if it's working? And unfortunately, that is a knock-on effect to consumers. It's why competition can be good when it comes to these markets. It's why I want Xbox to succeed, because it's good for all gamers. Sony has shown that they are willing to, respond when they're threatened. When Game Pass started making all these announcements and there were all these acquisitions, Sony then did Bungie. Although with Bungie, I don't think it was just like, oh, they bought something, we buy something. That would have been a conversation for a long time. But then there was a restructuring of PlayStation Plus and that offering. So it's just the very nature of things. When these big organizations are put on the back foot, they then have to fight back with a better offering. And at the moment, Sony don't have to do it.
It's a little crazy, man. Whenever I think about how Sony's acting right now, and then sort of comparing it to, PlayStation 1 era Sony, PlayStation 2 era Sony, where Sony was taking all these risks. They were putting out just weird, interesting games, like The Mark of Kree and Eco and Shadow of the Colossus, and they were just taking risks everywhere. And it didn't matter if they had, it didn't matter if they had Ratchet and Jack and Sly. Like, they were just like, whatever, man, we'll just have 3 mascots simultaneously. It didn't matter, right? They were just putting out games constantly, and I don't think people who are buying a PlayStation 5 now as their first console are just having a radically different experience as a gamer than I know that I did when I was, a first time PlayStation 1 or first time PlayStation 2 owner. It's just a completely different experience, and it's just so night and day that it's hard to sort of just wrap my head around and say, oh, this is what they've decided. This is how they think things are just going to work as long as we have one big game a quarter. I was like, Jesus, you guys used to have like fucking 15 amazing games a year. It was just knocking it out of the park constantly.
But the reality is they are having that many amazing games a year, even more, but it's coming from like indie developers. It's coming from developers that we would have considered massive back then. But the thing is, there is such a scale in the gaming market now, and games are so expensive to make that you do... Basically, what are the top tier games now are even more, they're unicorns, they're rarities. And so when it's God of War or Spider-Man 2, again, Spider-Man 2 is just a phenomenal property. You've got Marvel, you've got Spider-Man, which people can correct me because I'm not a huge Marvel fan. I like Marvel, but I don't have a huge understanding of its history and the comics. But I believe that Spider-Man was notoriously like the most popular Marvel character that Spider-Man has the rights to. Insomniac is just one of the best developers in the world. Like the amount of games they've carried for Sony, and I don't say that in a bad way on Sony's part. Like, they were a brilliant investment. Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Spider-Man Remastered, now this, they've got Wolverine. And Insomniac games, when they come out, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, they always come out in incredible quality. I mean, for the new Spider-Man 2, not to take the conversation too much in a different direction, but the new Spider-Man 2, they've announced that the performance mode, which is obviously for like higher frame rate and that, is going to have ray tracing. Whereas for Miles Morales, if you had performance mode, it turned ray tracing off. So they're always able to push the technology, which is not just good for flat screen games, but it means how much you can get out of the power of the console. And as you've mentioned before, they've worked on VR games before. I'm still hopeful that Wolverine is going to be a VR hybrid game.
Right.
But yeah, it's just the reality now that the top games that they're going to put all their marketing behind, it's so expensive that naturally they have to go. The other games will still do good, but Baldur's Gate 3, is it, that's just come out, that's just been getting 10 out of 10 everywhere?
Yeah.
That game didn't need the marketing because it wasn't, firstly, not a first-party game, but that will service the fans and the owners of these consoles. So, third-party is a much bigger industry now as well. So,
yeah. Yeah, no, you hit on a lot of good points, and I think the big one is that Sony needs to rely on these independent studios, these third-party studios, in order to kind of fill in the blanks. So it's not just happening in the VR space. People are concerned. It's like, well, we got Resident Evil Village that Sony paid for. We got Gran Turismo. We got Horizon Call of the Mountain. Now what? Yeah, and I feel like that mentality of being like, oh wow, people are upset that we've only gotten 3 AAA games at launch and then none since.
Right.
It makes me think, it's like, man, maybe they should have just spaced these things out. Said, hey, you're getting your Gran Turismo patch at launch. You'll get Gran Turismo Village. I'm sorry, Gran Turismo Village. That'd be great. Let's race through that shit.
Whoa, that'd be awesome.
Right? Just like driving over.
And it ends with a crash at the beginning of the forest.
There you go.
Ethan wakes up. Yeah.
But yeah, and then give us Village, 3 months later, and then give us and then give us Horizon Call of the Mountain 3 months after that, and then we'd be right here and say, man, they've been giving us a AAA title every 3 months. And instead they dropped it all and said, look at this wealth of games that you have at your disposal. And I think it kind of bit him in the ass. If you're gonna put out 3 AAA games a year, and some of them being things that they paid for from other studios, or some being hybrid games that they release a patch for, space that shit out, right? Because I think gamers have a short-term memory problem where it's like, man, look how good we're doing. Like the PlayStation 5 isn't getting this many AAA games this frequently. Right. So I think that needs to be adjusted a little bit. But yeah, games are crazy expensive to make. That's why the strategies changed. Everybody in the chat was quick to point that out. I'm definitely aware of that. I'm not happy about it. Like I'm not getting more enjoyment out of my PlayStation 5 games than I was out of my PS2 and PS3 games. I promise you. I'm in the minority. I get it. I'm getting used to that. But I really enjoyed the creativity from when games were less expensive to make and when Sony took more risks. And I would gladly sacrifice graphical fidelity. I would gladly sacrifice, a fucking 4K textures in ray tracing. I would sacrifice all of this stuff to see more output more frequently. Unfortunately, the world we live in doesn't allow for that. The world we live in, people get mad. They're like, oh man, this is just proof that Xbox is more powerful. And then PlayStation 5 gamers get caught up in the console war and say, oh, how come this game doesn't have this, and this, But I'd love if games were $40, $50 again. And we just expected a little less of them and we could see them more frequently. But I'm probably in a super minority there. So I should probably get off my little soapbox.
No, not at all, because I think a lot of people do feel that way. And obviously when I'm sort of making these points, it's not about what I'd like. It's just unfortunately the reality of the market, because the other component to it is cannibalization of, like, they could do, more games together, like release them more often, and it would boost the number of sales, but not as many sales as if they spread them out more. And unfortunately, when you're producing games, that expense that are going to shift that many units every day that you space them out apart could be what is the difference between $1 million and $5 million difference. It's
Right.
Let's
take. I'm going to tackle 3 tips, and then we're going to move to the second half of this quote, the second half of this questioning. Samson143BR with a $5 tip. I still want to talk to Samson. Said, posted a screenshot of this. By the way, he's talking about the Resident Evil 4 video. Posted a screenshot of this in the Without Parole Discord on September 19th. Just saying, we only do this show 3 times a week, and you've heard me in West Talk. We go long. Like the number, it's a little inside baseball, but let me tell you guys something. The run of show for each of these episodes is always twice as long. We want to cover twice the number of topics. And then halfway through we just start throwing out topics left and right because we're like, well, we don't have time for this. This is going to be a 4-hour show. But because Wes and I like to talk, because Myles and I like to talk, we don't always cover all the topics that we want to. So sometimes we cover news on GAMESCAST a little bit late. But we appreciate, but I want to say to Samson, I want to say to everybody on our Discord, on Twitter, through email, anybody who contacts me or posts in our news channel on Discord to say, hey, I want to contribute, I want to help out. I saw this piece of PSVR2 news, and here it is. I posted it for you. I emailed it to you. I DM'd it to you. whatever. Even if I don't respond to you because I'm just fucking crazy busy and I'm drowning in personal messages, I'm not popular. I promise you. I'm just bad at responding. Thank you. Like you're making my life easier every time you do that. So thank you very much. I don't want to make it sound like I don't appreciate it because I really, really do. Myles, when I used to do this back before anyone cared about PSVR, it would, the first 2 hours of my day would be scouring the internet and trying to get in touch with developers and finding news stories. Like they didn't have an outlet really to talk about these things, and try to make a breaking news video about the news that I'm finding. And so, you guys have made that part of my life so much easier.
Well, it's an amazing community.
Indeed it is. Stike Gamer, the VRAF GameCat with the €5 says, through the Xbox leaks, we can see how COVID ruined release schedules, delaying / stretching everything over 2 years. Starfield was a 2021 title. Yeah, I mean, it really just halted everything in its tracks. And I think we all thought that people working from home or adjusting to working through COVID or however the different companies restructured in order to keep their employees employed and games still in development. I don't think any of us realized how much of a wrench in the works that would become. And it's obvious now. It's become a massive wrench in the works. And the fact that we're getting any games is kind of impressive, to be honest.
It blew my mind away, Brian, because even though the technology's been there for probably a decade now, when I hear about like people I know who are video editors who like worked with YouTubers in America, and it's so like, and they would just work via the cloud. So they send you 4K footage. How long does that take? And then you got to edit it and then send it back for them to review it. Mm-hmm. And now more recently, they have like Adobe Premiere Pro has all these sort of shared functionalities where I know 2 people who I've worked with who they both edit on the same video at the same time remotely. That stuff kind of blows my mind of how that even gets set up. And so it's one thing to, have that as an intention going, this is what we plan to do. The pandemic was like, shit, right, what computer have you got at home? Like all the things, and okay, we've got to order them a new computer. How long is that going to take? Well, because of the supply issues, it's going to take a bit longer. And, a few days becomes a week, becomes 2 weeks. And on the grand scale of these big organizations, it's kind of a miracle that, the games that did got launched at all.
Agreed.
They were saying in the chat earlier, drink every time Brian and Myles says agreed. Because we always say it. Well, it's our way of doing a full stop to a section when we're like, okay, let's move on. It's like, agreed.
Because we do like to talk too much. Yeah. And I mean, AJ and I have sort of perfected the formula where we're just able to like actually keep moving and actually progress somehow while we're talking. But I think you and me, Myles, and me and Wes, I think even more, we're really good at staying on a topic for a very long time.
Like we're stuck in treacle, right? Yeah.
Right, exactly what I was thinking, and so that's why we end up talking a lot about the same thing for a long time. And so when I say agreed, it is literally me stopping myself, saying I am not going to respond and add more to this conversation. So agreed. We say it a lot. Agreed. Professor Lilith with a $5 tip says, "Hi, Game Cats." Hey, Professor Lilith. The winner of this week's Sunday multiplayer is Alvo. And I thought it was going to be Walkabout. Download the free update and come join us Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, PvP or PV Zombies. Nice. That's great. So if anybody doesn't know, and by now you should all know, make sure you click the link in the description below. Join our Discord. That's where Professor Lilith and all the cats get together every week. They vote on which PSVR2 game they're going to play that Sunday. You get to participate. You get to pick the game. And then every Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, everybody gets together into Discord and kind of and gets to play a bunch of VR multiplayer games that are probably sitting in your library that don't get enough love. That's it.
Professor Lilith, please put Ragnarok up for vote next week. And then it'll get voted down. But
yeah. You got to give it a chance. Got to give it a chance. Myles, what's the second half of this quote? I can't believe we spent so long in the first half that barely pertains to PSVR2.
Yeah, but I do think it's an interesting underlying thing. So the other question, which was what made me think, right, we need to talk about this on the show, is what is Sony's metaverse strategy? And this is something we've always been thinking about for a long time, all their conversations with Epic Games and everything. They say, what is Sony's metaverse strategy? How big of a role will VR2 play there? Is it for gaming only, or will it be something broader in terms of applications and markets? And Jim Ryan says, we're approaching metaverse conversations through two lenses, which, by the way, when I read that, I was like, what? Two lenses like VR? First is a platform holder. We had something called PlayStation Home for the PS3, and that was a very early...
Sorry.
Yeah, that was a very early manifestation of a platform metaverse, which it was. It was probably 10, 15 years ahead of its time. The second is from the studio perspective. We have a couple of projects underway that are very exciting for us in terms of creating some sort of game-type metaverse which can possibly have collaboration with other parts of Sony. Sony's entertainment assets have huge potential in the metaverse area. As for VR2, so I'll just read this last sentence, but it's interesting that he says that, and then he goes, as for VR2. Straight away, I'm like, oh, that's cool for VR. He goes, as for VR2, we see it as having a role down the road more in the midterm. So what was the lifespan of PSVR, the first one? Was it 7 years? No, it was...
I mean, yeah, it depends. It depends when you want to say that it died. It sort of lingered for an extra year after it probably should have been dead.
So I think like two to 3 years in, we'll see it come to fruition. I think whatever they have planned. But my first thought that came to mind with this wasn't early, obviously talking about PlayStation Home.
Yeah,
but it's the thing we've been talking about with going to the movies and watching Sony films in a virtual cinema with friends. You know, that for me is two of Sony's biggest properties. If you got VR and movies.
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is it. The fact that I think we were all being extremely optimistic earlier this year, late last year, when we were talking about PlayStation VR2 releasing and saying, are we going to get PlayStation Home on release? And I think I was being extremely optimistic because this thing was in beta for years on PlayStation 3. Years. And I don't think it ever came out of beta. I think they just finally killed it one day. And they're like, that was fun, wasn't it? Like, oh man. But really it was such a great concept. It kind of had a Second Life idea going on where it was, you know, you create your avatar, you walk around this virtual world, you can buy new clothes. You can just go and visit different attractions, and just there's just hundreds of people walking around as well that you can just walk up to and talk to, or harass constantly if you even think that they might be female, which seems to be what I saw a lot of. However, it was fun, and I remember on PlayStation 3 I used to check in on it all the time. It's
Same.
like if I was turning on my PlayStation 3 for the first time in a while, or if I didn't know what game I wanted to play, I would just turn on and go into home and just walk around and check things out and talk to people, and it was a lot of fun. And it was fine. But it's certainly something, and it's so good seeing Jim Ryan actually bring up the topic of PlayStation Home and recognizing that, yes, it's great and it was before its time. But you made a point, Myles, that you said, well, this may not be a VR thing. Why would you think they would separate home from VR when the term metaverse is almost ubiquitously referred to in the same sentence, in the same line of thought as VR?
I think it's because when it comes to talking to the wider market, you want to catch the biggest amount of fish first before you start funneling.
Yeah.
If the starting point of the conversation is, this is for PSVR2 and you can play on flat screen, nah. If it's like, this is awesome that everyone can play on, and if you have PSVR2, you can play it as well.
Right.
That's how you sell it. Because if you have VR2, yeah, I'm going to play it as well. Whereas we know what happens when you see State of Plays and it's like PSVR2. Five Nights at Freddy's, the new one, didn't say PSVR2 on it, did it? It didn't. It was, I think, if I remember correctly.
I think you're right.
And I don't want to be like sound borderline conspiratorial, but a part of me is like, if it had PSVR2, you get a lot of flat screen gamers going, oh, it's not for me then. Whereas VR gamers aren't like that the other way around. We're absolutely ecstatic if a game on flat screen is also playable in PSVR2.
Right.
And so I do think that's it. Obviously, this is an internal conversation, but I do think that when they have these conversations, it is about messaging and posturing of how, it's the whole thing of like, if you don't tell lies, you'll never have to remember what you've said before. Right. And it's kind of like in these situations that if you keep on message in every context, then you're not having to worry about changing it. And so it's interesting. They mentioned PlayStation Home about it being ahead of its time. And that they just said that they've got a couple of projects underway that are very exciting for us in terms of creating some sort of game type metaverse, which can possibly have collaboration with other parts of Sony. So it means that the opportunity for collaboration is there. So it is some kind of, I keep talking about that PlayStation commercial they did where the guy, I think he goes to the butcher's and he gets some meat and he brings it to his home, and then he goes into this basement. I assume it's to give to a zombie, isn't it, or something? And he goes through this like storage room, and there's all these like sort of artifacts from different PlayStation titles. And straight away, I'm just like, that feels like what PlayStation Home would be. The collectors you get on PlayStation Stars, you collect all these artifacts from all these different games we've loved. How cool would it be in PSVR2 if you created your own home and then you could put like statues up of all your favorite games and stuff like that? So it feels like the direction of travel. But like we said, when it came to PSVR2, the bottleneck for PSVR2 is how many PS5s they've sold. The bottleneck for Metaverse is how many PSVR2s they've sold. So that's another big reason why they're going to wait a couple of years, because if you're going to do a Metaverse, it needs to be populated with people. And so they're going to have to wait until the adoption rate keeps going higher and higher. Yeah. Those were my long list of thoughts.
Agreed. No, I do think that I think you're onto something very important, that the metaverse is not going to be something that is going to be accessed through exclusively virtual reality, just because that's something that we've sort of been taught through Ready Player One and this kind of random usage of the word up until this point. I think that, sorry, the trailer just got like way too large and I have to fix it now.
That's right.
Yep. Yep, that's the thing. Anyway, it's like Rec Room. The Rec Room developers have this living, breathing world that is constantly being accessed by people, and it's not because they limited it to virtual reality. It's because they have kids playing on flat screen or on tablets or on their phone, and you can access it from anywhere. And I think that if Sony's been paying attention, they completely understand that. They see that Rec Room has been a successful business model, and that this is something they'll adapt to their own metaverse, platform exclusive metaverse, as they sort of pointed out. And I think it makes a lot of sense. But again, there's always these benefits to accessing these worlds in VR. Suddenly you've got full control of your hands, and people are seeing where you're looking and where you're pointing, and just seeing that like your avatar is completely different than everybody else's because it's capturing your movements and giving it life. And I do think that something like this could absolutely help sell VR. And I mean, on top of that, have so many more applications. The biggest one, I think, being just advertisement, right? Again, advertising to your core consumer base, just like PlayStation Home was doing. You always had all these different places that you could go into, and kind of that were promotional areas for upcoming games, like little attractions and rides and little movies you could watch. I mean, there were full-fledged games in there. Did you? I mean, didn't
they have a Resistance mini game? Didn't they? I know that's a bit different because it was. I think the game had already come out.
It's been so long.
I know. It was where you shot like I think the Resistance one, unless I'm completely making up. It was where you had like an anti-aircraft, and then you had like planes coming in and that you had to shoot them down. I think they had an Uncharted game someone mentioned.
Yep.
I remember, you're right, they did.
I remember Sodium being a thing where it was, and maybe that's, I mean, it's like a futuristic Wipeout style, like racing game type thing. Man, it's all a blur, but I do remember the attraction. I remember the attractions more than the rides. I remember trying to go do the Siren one. Was it Siren? And I was always standing in line and I couldn't actually access the ride itself or the attraction itself. So I remember going to, I remember going to all these different places, but I remember so few of the actual games and attractions. And and just like Jim Ryan said, it was before its time. What was it? What was the second part? The second part of his quote was talking about the studios, though, the first party studios. And so he's talking about, I mean, when it comes to first party studios in relation to the metaverse, do you think he's talking about these types of attractions and these types of games like VR? How could all this be interconnected when it comes to the metaverse? Or is he just talking about these games as VR games separate from the metaverse? I got to read the quote again because I fucking forgot what he said.
There's a lot here. So, I mean, I'll read it all again. So
no. I just pulled it back up on the screen.
Okay.
Metaverse strategy. How much of a role will PSVR2 play there? And then he said this: approaching the metaverse through two lenses. The second is the studio perspective. I have a couple projects underway that are exciting for us in terms of creating some sort of game type metaverse, which can possibly have collaboration with other parts of Sony. Sony's entertainment assets have a huge potential. Yeah, and as you pointed out, just going to the movies.
Yeah.
Is this why we don't have big screen? Right? Because Sony wants to actually take advantage of that? I don't know.
Yeah, we don't want it to be some kind of thing that we do as a small app when actually it could be a part of a much bigger feature. Right. This is something I thought about recently with PlayStation. Notoriously doesn't allow you to mod games. The thing that blew my mind, I think Wes mentioned on Wednesday that Doom Eternal you can play in VR now.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be amazing. And it's like all these flat screen games you could play in VR if PlayStation allowed modding. It would completely kneecap, you could argue, their business model, of, no, you can have these experiences, but you got to pay for them. And it's kind of the same with not releasing any small apps if there's a bigger plan later down the line. The question I've got, though, is Roblox has just come out on PS5. I know that it did come to VR.
Roblox came out on PlayStation 4.
It did. Oh, yeah, you're right, actually. Sorry.
It's just playable on PlayStation 5.
What do you mean?
Well, because PlayStation 5 is backwards compatible. You can play PlayStation 4 games on it.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant they literally stopped it from being playable on PS5. So you can play it backwards compatibility, but
they announced it as
game.
a PlayStation 4 game, so it's not actually taking full advantage of the PlayStation 5. Like, what are they doing? Is there going to be a PlayStation 5 version of Roblox, and then also say, hey, it also supports PSVR2? I mean, I think a lot of people out there would be really happy to hear that, but it seems strange why releasing games branded as PS4 games right now.
Yeah. Interesting.
Still a lot of people.
But yeah, there's a lot of careful language here, which also could just be the way he said it, and then we look too much into it. But it's the fact that he uses terms like some sort of game type metaverse. So it's not that's not entirely gaming. Game types. There are game mechanics, which Fortnite has done a lot of it, as some of people have rightly mentioned in the chat. And obviously Sony has invested a lot of money into Epic Games as well for partnerships there. They talk about Sony's entertainment assets have huge potential in the metaverse area. And they're saying the VR2 stuff has a role later down the road because they're going to have to build the infrastructure first. Right. And if you're going to build the infrastructure, kind of like the previous conversation, I think it is why we spoke at length about that previous question, which is, if you're building stuff at scale, you need to make sure it has the biggest possible, the biggest customer pool that you can serve, and then you can start, tailoring it to niches. And VR is a niche, or a niche, as I know some of you like to say. So yeah, I think that's a big part.
Just me.
But look, I think these two quotes are actually great because I think the first one just it removes any question about why are Sony doing this. The truth is they're quietly confident they're doing it because it's a part of the plan. They know what they're doing, and good on them. If it's working, it's working. And then secondly, with this stuff, they've mentioned three amazing things there. They've mentioned a game type metaverse. They've mentioned PlayStation Home, and they've mentioned VR2. And that shows like a tying together of the past, the present, and the future in many ways. Like VR2 is the future, or you could say that's actually the present, and then the metaverse is the future, and then Home was the past. And so, these conversations are definitely happening internally. It's going to be a massive investment to make some kind of metaverse thing. And what are Sony also investing in a lot at the moment? Like 10 different live service games.
Yeah.
And actually, that was another question he was asked on the call. I don't have the quote in front of me, but he was asked, like, how many of these do you expect to be a success? And he basically says, well, obviously, we don't expect all of them to be a success. But he says, but what you define as a success is actually quite nuanced and different. There's different metrics. So it's not just black and white. And we've seen what happened with the Last of Us Factions game that was, shown to Jeff Keighley. They were like, we're going to announce something really soon. And then it just went completely quiet. Heard nothing from Naughty Dog at the showcase. There's all these rumours that Bungie stepped in, had a look and went, this is a good game, but it's not a live service game. If you create a live service or a metaverse, you need to create a world that people are wanting to live in. And that's even more important when you make it as a VR version. So these are very expensive projects that take a lot of research. It's not just making a great gaming experience. It's about making something that people want to keep coming back to in competition with all these other live services in the world at the moment and games, that people could be playing instead of this one. So they've only got one shot at getting it right. And I think they know that.
It's funny what you say about the live service stuff because They could certainly put out 10 live service games. And if one of them was an amazing success, that would pay for all of them. I think that's sort of their strategy. I think they're like, we're just going to throw a bunch of shit at the wall because everybody wants their Fortnite. Everybody. That would be a dream come true for any studio to have this game that's just constantly evolving, constantly raking in billions of dollars a month with microtransactions, and it's. That game makes more money than any first party Sony game ever possibly could, just because of the way that it's designed and the way that the financial elements of it work. And dude, if I obviously don't want Sony to go down the road of being a live service only studio, right? I would love for them to have that revenue so they could be the crazy, wild, risky Sony that they used to be, where they're just making money hand over fist and saying, "Hey, yeah, let's fund this studio. Hey, let's buy that studio. Let's just do this. Let's Parappa the Rapper 3. Why not? Let's fucking do it." Like, but then I'm nervous that they see this live service game taking off, and then they say, "Well, this is way more profitable than anything else we're doing. This should be all we're doing." And that's what makes me nervous, is that that's kind of how businesses work. And so part of me like wants all of these to be failures so that they don't get a taste of Fortnite money, because I think that's when Sony gets dangerous and boring.
Yeah.
Boy, we've really fucking beat the shit out of that horse, didn't we?
Dude, but I think these are two really interesting questions and answers, because I think it gets to the crux of two areas that we have, questions we had about Sony,
Sure,
about what they're playing at when it comes to marketing, and what are they thinking about when it comes to this metaverse that we keep hearing about, and like these VR experiences and these non-gaming things. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited. We think about how long, PSVR2's been out for. I'm going to look up how many days now. It has been 213 days since PSVR2.
7 months.
Dude, it's absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things, and the amount of games is just ridiculous.
Dude, and next month is going to be the greatest month that VR has ever seen, and the greatest month that horror games have ever seen. I'm so excited. I couldn't possibly be any more excited for next month. We have 3 solid non-horror games, and then just a mess of fucking horror. It's gonna be great. I'm so excited.
Same.
We've got Snafu with the $5 tip, says thumbnail made me half expect to find a drunken Jim Ryan exhaustively spilling his guts, VR, his marriage, etc., to a bewildered Brian Paul. Dude, can you imagine? Can you imagine if we actually had Jim Ryan on the show?
We'll get him on.
I don't know if that's how being blacklisted works, Myles.
Yeah. We'll get you wearing a mask with a different person on it and say, the boardroom meeting's here, Mr. Jim Ryan. We'll just dial you in. And then you go, aha!
Make sure he's good and toasty. He'll have no idea what's going on. Macho, the real estate procrastinating game cat with the $5 tip, says my favorite thing when a new big game would release used to be to go to the section of the PlayStation Home and see what they brought to interact with. I agree.
I used to like getting to the fair. Do you remember the fair?
The fair?
Yeah, they had like a carnival, and yeah, you could like go on all the carnival things like coconut shy and stuff like that. It was good fun. You could win tickets to get little items for your home. It was amazing. Fun times.
I just want my own virtual apartment. I want to decorate it with my platinum trophies.
I know.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
J-Mind, the Game Cat, with the $5 tip, says the metaverse is basically just a fancy version of Microsoft Bob. Windows 95 memories, anyone? Microsoft Bob. Do you
I remember?
Do you? Yeah? No.
I'm looking out.
Okay.
No, I'm joking.
Okay.
I'm looking at now.
Cool. Thanks for looking up, because I've got too many tips here to stop what I'm doing. You're going to explain it to me? Do they have an explanation?
It just says Microsoft Bob was a Microsoft software product intended to provide a more user-friendly interface for the Windows 3.1X, Windows 95, and Windows NT operating systems, supplanting the Windows Program Manager. The program was released on March the 11th, 1995, and discontinued in early 1996. Microsoft Bob, there he is.
We tried, J-Man. We tried.
Yeah, sorry.
But it's good to know that the metaverse has already tried and failed. Macho, the real estate procrastinating game cat with the $2 tip, says VR and modding go hand in hand, like peanut butter and jelly. Bro, what is it about peanut butter and jelly? Somebody mentioned it in the voice chat last night, and then suddenly that's all I wanted to eat. And I know this is not what your tip was about, Macho, but I'm sorry. Is there a better sandwich on the face of the planet than peanut butter and jelly.
What is the best brand of peanut butter and jelly for me to get when I'm in the States? Is there a top tier one I should be going for, or is anyone decent?
Somebody in the chat's going to have a better answer for you, because here's what I like. I think it's Jif. I think it's Jif that makes and stick with me here because this is not going to sound like what it is. Jif makes like a reduced fat peanut butter.
Okay.
It's like 25% less fat. And I don't give a fuck how much fat's in it. Like, I want peanut butter. And there's something about it that makes it taste way better. And so, people, whenever I'm grocery shopping, it's like hot dogs, fucking pizza, and then my peanut butter is 25% reduced fat. And people are like, what the fuck's wrong with you? I was like, it tastes better. It's like the reason I drink Diet Coke is because it tastes better than regular Coke. Because I don't know, man. I like Diet Coke. It's refreshing. So reduced fat Jif and then I think just Welch's grape jelly, I think.
Okay. I've only had it once when I was in the States, and when I had it, I thought, this is all right. It was just all right. I just felt pretty indifferent. I was like, I probably wouldn't have it again, but I want to have the proper stuff.
Yeah, we got to make sure you have as much American stuff as possible when you're here.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna get a little Caesars as well in solidarity with you, man.
Macho follows up that statement about peanut butter and jelly in mods with another tip, a $2 tip. It says Half-Life Alyx blew up because of amazing mods.
Right.
It didn't blow up.
But unfortunately, it doesn't matter how amazing the mods are. PlayStation's never going to allow it. Like,
true.
It's a shame.
But what we've seen happen, Myles, is that we do get the mods as official releases from the studios themselves. Right. They say, well, these were really popular maps that the community made, or this were really popular modes that the community created with mods, and then we've just created official versions of those and implemented to our game for the official release. And I can get down with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Scott, the PSVR game cat for life with the level 2 membership, says off topic, but after 10 years of working nights, I've just walked away and now need something called a day job. Wish me luck. Wow. Hopefully you parted with your employer on good terms, although...
Good luck.
Yeah. Dude, becoming a normal person really screwed up my mind and my life. I used to get up at 4 p.m. and go to work, and then be up until the sun rose. You reading a newspaper? Is that what you're doing?
No, I got a flyer here. This our Pizza Hut over here, because we're talking about food. They have melts. They're new melts.
Yeah.
It's just all right. Just how else can we fold bread and put pizza toppings in it and call it something else?
Isn't that just essentially a quesadilla?
Yeah, that's what I think. It's a mac and cheese one. But I did speak in our Discord the other day that I remember once McDonald's in the UK was selling hot dogs. And I remember going to America and everyone thought, what? We don't have them over here. Yeah. Even though the commercials in the UK were kind of like these American adverts. Some song about
trying
hot
to
dogs.
sell it, right? They were like, Americans eat this. Don't you want to be American? It's like, no.
Yeah, exactly. But then they, and supposedly they were quite good. So I don't know. Never had hot dogs in McDonald's in the States.
Twitcher, the Deuce Juice Game Cat with the £2 says, mentioning Mark of Cree, I think I say Cree, right? I say Mark of Cree. Mentioning Mark of Cree earlier earns you a tip, hun. Oh, thanks, Twitcher. Well, what is mentioning Primal and Ghost Hunter? And what other obscure first-party PS2 games were there? Oh, there was the follow-up to Mark of Cree, The Rise of Kasai, which was also very good. I'm just waiting for Twitcher to send another tip now that I've mentioned more awesome games. No, thank you very much, Twitcher. It's always fun when somebody has any idea what I'm talking about. Luckily, not the most obscure games I've talked about recently. Macho, the real estate procrastinating game cat with a $2 tip says, try toasting your bread, then Jif or Peter Pan peanut butter and jelly.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. I don't have a kitchen right now. It's been over a year since I've had a kitchen, so I'm lucky to have even fucking bread.
Bread's good. I
just have a big hole in my wall where my kitchen used to be. I miss having a kitchen, Myles.
Man.
Ace Gamer Cats with the $5 tip says, whatever happens, don't read this out loud. I don't read tips before I say them out loud, so I say all sorts of shit that I'm not supposed to say. I'm sorry, Ace Gamer Cats. Okay. I think that gets us caught up on tips. Final thing we want to talk about today, Myles, was that our good friend Ian Higton over at Eurogamer put out a video recently saying this is what can save the PSVR2. I love those titles. Like, oh, it needed saving. I had no idea. Right. Big arrow pointing to the very corner of the headset, pointing at something nondescript.
Yes.
Ian's face going, no, it wasn't like that at all. Ian's not like that. Ian's a good guy. And he made a great video for Eurogamer, and a lot of it was, yeah, that's good. I mean, I would make fun of you, Myles, but I already do. Your face is in every single thumbnail you've made over the last 2 years.
Although it's technically not my face.
Okay, that's fine.
Actually, I did it for the Resident Evil one. It was, and then actually for the edit one, it was actually just a screenshot of me in the fetal position.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which was genuine.
So the video was how what this one thing can save PSVR2, and it was basically talking about how going back to the well and PlayStation 3 games of that era have there's a lot of nostalgia for them. People remember them fondly, and we're constantly asking for remakes. We're constantly asking for even backwards compatibility to be able to play them on our current system. But why wouldn't you go back to the well and reuse these games, reuse the assets, and bring them into VR? As we're seeing with Bulletstorm, it's happening. And that obviously happened with Skyrim last generation. We've seen it happen here and there. Myles, what's the benefit? There's multiple benefits, I'm sure, but let's kick off this conversation. What's the benefit of using a PlayStation 3 game why would a studio want to do that rather than just create their own IP?
I never want to use the word just when it comes to game development. I know there are always devs screaming, it's not just do that, but as close as I can get to using the word just, it means you don't have to create new assets. It's effectively a port, which does take a lot of work, but it also gives you a lot more leeway in terms of what the graphics are. If it's a new game, you expect it to look like a new game with new graphics. If it's a PlayStation 3 game, but it's at 120 FPS, and you're in it, you got the nostalgia factor. You're going to get people that are sort of going back to it. And also, if you've got games that have proven to be well made, and I've got a list of suggestions that I'm sure we'll be both sharing our suggestions in a moment. There are just games that people would love to experience in VR. And so I think it's that goodwill, isn't it? It's why there's always reboots of movies that have been rebooted 3 or 4 times, because it's cheaper to do.
Cheaper to do, and you don't have to convince people that they want to see it. You don't have to convince people that this is a game that they want to play because they've already played it. They played it once, they have fond memories of it, and they say, "Man, that would be great in VR." I'll tell you, man, for the number of people
you can be in it,
right? The number of people who watch this channel, number of comments I see constantly, whenever anybody jumps up and down and says, "This is what I want in VR," it's very seldom like, "Let me explain the new IP that I want in VR." 9 times out of 10, it's me saying BioShock. It's everyone else saying Alien Isolation. It's people saying, what, we never got Fallout 4 or Fallout 3. We'll take any Fallout in VR. These are the games that people want. They're games that people have fucking already played, but still there's something comforting about it and going back into it. And then on top of that, experiencing it in the way that we've kind of always wanted to. It's sort of like a dream come true. Being like, these are some of our favorite games of all time. Now let's go back and revisit them in first person VR. And I don't know how to develop games, Myles. So I'm not going to sit here and say, well, it's obviously cheaper.
Yeah.
It's cheaper because you don't have to create all the assets. You don't have to create all the character models. You don't have to create all the dialogue. You don't have to pay for voice acting. It's already done. However, it is already done. And there are certain games that when I go back to the PlayStation 3, because I just went back to it recently, Tatum in the chat can attest to this, kind of got a little obsessed with PlayStation 3 recently, and am shocked how good some of this shit holds up. Graphically, gameplay-wise, there's a lot of good stuff out there. So, Myles, you said you have a pretty decent list of games that you would like to see.
I said I had a list.
Not
decent. We'll have to wait. We'll have to wait and see.
All right. Did we go super generic? Because I kind of went a little generic because I wanted to make sure we didn't miss any of the hot spots of the past. But I'm keeping an eye on the chat. So if you guys have any off the wall, oddball, jammer lammy suggestions, please, for the love of God, post them, and I will be keeping an eye out.
There's a game right near the top of my list that could arguably be one of the generic obvious ones, but it might not be, and that's Journey.
Oh yeah,
Journey. Oh, dude, it had a lot of immersion in it. Because of the emotion, the sense of scale, from vast deserts to towering mountains, and with the emotional storytelling, it would be phenomenal. A bit where you're going, like you're surfing down the sand, and you have all the light coming through the pillars. Oh, yeah, Journey would be magical.
Yeah, Journey is also on PS4. Clarification in the chat. I found Journey was interesting because it was. I found it so simple at first, and you're kind of progressing and just being like, what's the point of this game, right? And then you see another character that looks like you, and they're jumping up and down and kind of running around you and stuff. You're like, this is a real person, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right? It took me a minute to realize because especially back in the PlayStation 3 era, I wasn't sitting around waiting for reviews. I wanted to be part of the conversation. Like when I watch Podcast Beyond or GameScoop, I wanted to be part of that conversation and really know all of these games the second they came out. And so like I was discovering this along with everybody else. It wasn't something that was told to me. And that kind of realization that there are other people populating my game that I'm just kind of on a journey with, and they sort of come and go randomly. And
you never know who they are.
Yeah.
They don't have a name above their head.
You find out when you beat the game, you said, these are the people that you played with.
That was it.
The PSN names pop up. But that's it. Yeah. During the game, you don't get to talk to them. And I think there'd be a weird connection about being able to do that in first person VR and run up to these people that you can't even talk to. But it's like, we're on this emotional little journey together. So let's go, anonymous little person. Let's go.
I'm getting chills thinking about it again. It's such a powerful. It's the thing about Journey is it doesn't tell you what the story is. It is just an experience, and it means different things to different people. But that bit where you start seeing other people and you can jump about. Can you imagine waving in VR and just never knowing who they are? And it's like we existed in this moment. Like that'd be so good.
John Doe Juggalo said, "Dude, Journey, you're hitting the nail on the head. Meow." Get some support in the chat. It's great. I'm looking at the chat here before I scream out my next one because I want to make sure. Yep. Kulad. I knew it. I knew somebody was going to say it. Here we go. I pulled the games out. Fear. And specifically Fear 3. I do think you could probably boil down the trilogy a little bit. Fear 3 is not a game I played when it came out. It's a game that I picked up recently after getting another PlayStation 3 and having the ability to play these games in my bedroom, playing before I go to bed for a couple hours. And so now I'm kind of going down this rabbit hole of playing a bunch of old PS3 games. And Fear, again, is one of those games that kind of holds up. Fear 3 specifically. The lighting is really good. The environments look really nice. It's actually spooky. Like they do a really good job of that. And so the whole time I'm playing it, I'm going, man, this is a game from however many years ago, but I guarantee you if they took this exact game and threw it into VR, made it a little bit sharper so there were no complaints about the resolution. I think it's fine as is. It's amazing. And so shout out to Kulad in the chat for Fear, because I don't know if Fear 1 or Fear 2 hold up nearly as much, but Fear 3 for sure. I think might be the pinnacle of the series.
Like it.
Yeah. J-Mind the Game Cat with the $5 tip says Condemned 2 Bloodshot would be brilliant on PSVR2. A first-person horror melee shooter that was truly scary. What's your familiarity, Myles, with the Condemned series? There was 2 of them, I think. There's just only 2 of them, I think, is what I meant to say.
I'm having a look. Okay, so straight away from Condemned 2, the cover I recognise with the eyeball in the middle. But yeah, I never played it.
I think the first one only came to 360, and so there was something about the fact that I didn't have access to the first game, and it bugged me. And so I'm pretty sure that I have Condemned 2 in my library, but I don't think I've ever actually gotten around to playing it. First person horror melee shooter. He says it was truly scary. You've just added it to my list. Maybe I'll check it out tonight before I go to bed, and then I won't be able to sleep. All right, give me another one, Myles. What's next on your list? I'm scanning the chat.
I had Heavy Rain on my list.
Interesting.
But you could have Beyond Two Souls as well. And actually, this kind of goes to a bit of a conversation that was had, I think, yesterday or the day before in the Discord. Do join it. Link below if you haven't already. Talking about someone had been playing. It's not It Takes Two. It's the prison game they made. A Way Out. A Way Out.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was saying, oh, that'd be cool for VR, and they're like, yeah, a lot of cutscenes and stuff. Although it's a lot of it's ongoing, and the thing is, when stuff gets brought to VR, there are changes made to make do with the fact that okay, you can change these cutscenes and have something instead. Although it is a challenge, and so although those are 2 other games, It Takes Two and A Way Out. Heavy Rain, like the bit. I don't think this is a spoiler. It's early on in Heavy Rain. It's a very famous scene where he loses his Sean, and
God.
Wasn't
it like press square to Jason? Wasn't it Jason?
Oh, was it Jason? Was it not Sean?
I don't know.
Jason? Yeah, I don't know.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been so long that I've got a completely different name. But it is Jason. But you're looking and you see the red balloon. And everywhere you look, the balloon moves, and like to experience that in VR, like you're going through the crowd, and you like, I could see it, Jason. I think, and it'd be an example of a game that would become incredibly more, it'd be more emotive because it feels more personal. And the thing that made those games great was they felt personal because of the decisions that you took. Mm-hmm. But between the decisions, everything else would feel more personal as well because it'd be you at the beginning around your home. It would be you meeting these people or going through the tragedies or driving on the freeway where you got to turn left and right around stuff and make quick decisions. So yeah, Heavy Rain.
Yeah, talk about talk about a game that would have to be redesigned for VR. Absolutely, right. Heavy Rain would have to, because that game was 90% QuickTime events.
Yes, yeah.
Right, is like you just putting, like you said, the plates, putting them down on the table. Like you'd have to be like a quarter circle or whatever with the analog sticks, and make sure you did it slow enough where you didn't slam the plate down and like make the other character think you were mad. And so, I feel like that's something that you just have to would have to give the player full control of and say, you've taken the plate, now you have to gently put it down on the table, but like just without a QuickTime event, like you're just literally doing it yourself. And I think doing that all again in first person, I think the only trouble I think you'd run into would be that you switch characters, you control different characters throughout the course of Heavy Rain, and it's so much easier to do that from a third person perspective because you see the character on the screen. Right. It's, for me personally, at least, it's easy when I switch characters in a game, if I'm in first person, to forget that I'm somebody else. Because I'm not seeing them on the screen. I've just been playing this other character for an hour. Now I'm playing the detective, and I'm like, oh shit, right. This is a completely different viewpoint.
But yeah, Wanderer has found a fix for that, haven't they?
Mirrors everywhere. Everything's reflective.
But that seems to be what they're doing, even though it wasn't in the first game. And I mean, I felt like a bit of an idiot when I saw the Wanderer trailers for the PSVR2 version, because I was like, oh, okay, so when you were going through time in the original, you were embodying different people. It wasn't transporting you to those different times as the same person.
Wait, this was a revelation for you.
It was
interesting.
Even though it's obvious, like I missed. Yeah,
especially in the Mayan stage where it's like you're playing as different people
for sure.
in the same area.
Oh, dude, that didn't even click for me until there was a conversation recently. I was like, oh my god, how did I not? He was talking down to him. I thought, yeah, it was one of those moments I felt I was incredibly slow.
You just made me feel so much better about everything I've ever overlooked in any game ever.
Oh, dude, I think also because we play so many games now, there's always going to be stuff you overlook. And when I do Let's Plays, there's stuff where I have the chat absolutely screaming at me going, how did you not know that? And Looper goes, did you not look at your hands? It's like, yeah, I did, but I didn't really think about it. Like, I don't know. It's amazing what you overlook. And so, like, yeah, the mirror thing would mean, I don't know. It's a way of, because if you go, oh, just look at your hands, will that be the same with Heavy Rain? Oh, I'm a different person now. I'm a different height. I actually platinum this week Creed Championship Edition, and this is relevant, by the way. Thank you very much. And I never, obviously, there's a new campaign for the Championship Edition based on the new movie, and I didn't know how it was going to go. And there's a bit where you're Creed, and then you sort of fist bump, and then you go into their body, and now you're looking at Creed. And so you actually play as different people, and that's how it's kind of done. The switches are done where they fist bump, and they sort of let you embody them, and then you're looking at yourself, which was, it's interesting. There's different ways of doing it in games.
Oh,
what's your next game?
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed. What's your next game, Brian?
Dude, there's too many suggestions in the chat.
Just list some of them, and then we'll just dive into a couple.
Oh, okay. Well, I got a pile right here. Okay. So this is more of an example than an actual suggestion. Okay. Because I remember when Rage came out on PlayStation 3, people weren't super thrilled about it. They were like, oh, it's kind of shallow, blah, 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 whatever. Right. But this is a prime example of when you take a game that was okay, maybe even pretty good, on the flat screen, and then you bring it into VR, and it's fucking incredible. I think that Rage, despite being a little bit shallow, is one of those games that you would get into VR and be like, oh, this is fast paced, and it's just like, over the top action sirens on my end, and I think it's a prime example that I don't think anybody wants to continue the Rage IP. I don't think anybody wants to go, oh yeah, Rage 1 and 2 were just fucking powerhouses. Maybe they were. Maybe they did. Maybe they sold fucking crazy for id and Bethesda. But I do think the proper way forward for that franchise is VR, because it just, at least the first game didn't do anything particularly special. But again, you bring that into VR, and it suddenly stands out among the crowd, because even a not particularly special flat screen game can certainly be pretty special in VR sometimes. So more of an example, that one right there. Instead of saying, hey, I definitely want Rage in VR, Rage is an example of a game that wasn't great. Or it was okay. I mean, I actually enjoyed it. I think I enjoyed it more than most people did. But, yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
Hopefully that made sense.
No, it did. It did.
All right. Hey, before you give us your next one, I got to get a little bit caught up on tips here.
That's fine.
All right, so my apologies if this delays things, but we got to get all the way back. Twitcher, the Deuce Juice Game Cat with the £5 said, Primal, loved it. Didn't play Ghost Hunter, and I've only recently bought Rise of the Kasai. It never came out on PlayStation 1 in Europe. Rise of the Kasai, PlayStation 2 game, but Ghost Hunter you should definitely play. I don't know how it holds up control-wise, and get through the first hour or two. As soon as you get out of the school, it becomes a much, much better game. I think most reviewers probably didn't, because holy crap, that game's way better than people gave it credit for. Austin Tatum with the $5 tip says Castlevania Lords of Shadow 1 and 2 in first person. You can be a whipping and swinging warrior, or in VR as a rat in the sewer. Ha! Amazing suggestion. Again, another series that was not received all that well. Lords of Shadow 1 and 2, I mean, especially 2, right? Were just not reviewed well whatsoever. But yeah, you bring those into first person. You do some of the shape shifting stuff. You get to run through as a rat in the sewer. I think we got a winner on our hands, Myles. Kool-Aid with the $2 tip says Kool-Aid.
Kool-Aid.
His name is spelled Culade, and so I said Kool-Aid because I'm dumb. And he says it's pronounced Kool-Aid. I'll have to remember that. Kool-Aid. Social Destruct with the $10 tips. It's a great show. Isn't there something being developed for PlayStation VR2 which is similar to Home? It's called Rift XR. Subscribe and hit the like button. Rift XR has been something that I think we talked about Rift XR a little bit on a show a couple months ago. But man, what it actually is, I have zero recollection of. I feel like we've talked about so many things, and Rift, for me at least, is something that has to kind of prove themselves and say, here it is, instead of making a bunch of promises, just actually deliver on the promises. But definitely interested in checking it out. Macho, the real estate procrastinating GameCat with the $5 tip says, wish instead of let's pivot hard to live service, it was let's make all of our old first party classics in VR. Let's revive and reuse great things we did. I agree. And that's because I really don't like Sony's insistence that they should ignore their past. Nintendo has this amazing ability to, kind of prey on people's nostalgia and bring in characters that you remember from certain games, or they remaster certain games. And PlayStation or Sony seems like they like to forget and say, you know what, like, Killzone's not really a thing anymore. Let's move on. Like, Sly Cooper's not really a thing anymore. Let's move on. And they just and they don't really revisit the things that people have so much nostalgia for. And it seems like a real shame. I feel like that's not only money left on the table, but it feels like you're not appreciating your own studios, and you don't understand why we like you, Sony. Like, we like you because we have an emotional connection to you for the last 20 something years. And these games are those memories that forge that connection. And they're like, we're selling PlayStation 5s. Who cares? All right. Macho, the real estate procrastinating GameCat with the $2 tip says PT in VR. Fully realized Hideo Kojima VR would kill. Dude.
I don't remember that PS3 game.
Stop hurting me. Yes, we're gonna give him a break. And Gustavo Barandas. Gustavo
The guy
Barandas.
Kojima's in the UK at the moment, by the way.
Is he coming to hang out?
I wish. He's in Guildford, which is where Hello Games are, and it's just by Farnborough, where End Dreams are. I assume he's gone to visit. Who are the creators of Senua's Sacrifice?
Team Ninja or Ninja Theory.
That's it. Yeah, I think that's who he's going to say. He posted on Instagram. It was just the entrance
which one is it?
To Guildford Station.
Team Ninja or Ninja Theory?
Ninja Theory. It's Ninja Theory.
Okay. Right. Team Ninja's Ninja Gaiden, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But then again, Hideo Kojima always posts random stuff on his social, which could always be like months old.
Crazy. Gustavo Barandas. Damn it. Gustavo Barandas said, why do you call it tips instead of super chat? Because I used to be a waiter. Like, that's what I did for my living for like 20 years. I waited tables. And so anytime someone gives me money, it's a tip. It's a sign that they appreciate what we're doing.
Super chat in a restaurant? That'd be weird.
That would be. I look at my table like, don't you talk to me without being blue and attaching money to it.
Yeah.
Super cool video, bros, with the $2 tip says Arkham Trilogy. Do you think the Batman, Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and Arkham Origins, although do we count Origins or do we just say Arkham Knight for the third game in the trilogy now? Do you think that would work in first person VR?
I'd like to think so. A lot of fist combat. Those were games I actually never got to play. I heard amazing things about them. Actually, I do have Arkham Knight because it was on a PlayStation Plus. But yeah, I've heard amazing things. But yeah, man, like just the Gotham environment. I mean, we've already played a Batman game that looked great, but to have sort of this open world with the rain and like just the hardcore combat. Going back to what I said about Creed, like the thing about Creed is the punches feel the impact you feel, the thud as you're punching away. It's great, and that's what you'd want in an Arkham game. Was you'd want that feeling of impact with the brawler of just punching and just getting into the battles like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that also plays into the next one we got here. Grandpa's Barbecuer. Okay, hold on a second. I need to copy and paste this because I can't read the whole thing on my screen. Dude, I need to get 2 monitors. I've been using one tiny monitor like my whole life, and I really need a second monitor set up because
I just got a second monitor and it changed my life. So highly recommend it.
I'm gonna have to do it. I've got room. I'm just messy. Grandpa's Barbecuer Game Cat with the Australian $2 tip says The Darkness and Chronicles of Riddick. Dude, Chronicles of Riddick for sure. Right, that game is. I believe, if I remember correctly, the beginning of that game is all melee, and so punching enemies in VR would be fantastic. And also, if I remember correctly, there's like a lot of climbing and a lot of climbing through grates and things like that. And so a lot of this physicality that always feels better in VR than it does on the flat screen. But The Darkness is a great choice too. Darkness is based on a comic book and give you all these like really dark powers, tentacles and shit coming out of you. And Synapse showed us that being a fucking superhero or a super powerful person with crazy over the top powers in VR can feel really, really good. And I think if they implemented those types of powers from The Darkness into a VR game, it would be great. And I think we're going to do one more, and then we're going to get your next suggestion. Alan Hembrey D, Cat Allergic Game Cat with a $5 tip says, shame they didn't do nostalgia, or they don't do nostalgia. I saw Blink 182's new video all about nostalgia. Cried like a baby, and it has a gazillion views. Nostalgia works. I gotta watch that video.
I need to watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what that's all about. I was never a huge Blink 182 fan, but you know, the singles and stuff, I was into it. Yeah.
Say it ain't so, Brian.
Did you say it ain't so?
Yeah.
Is that Weezer?
No. I mean, maybe.
Is it also Blink 182?
Possibly.
Well, I agree.
I agree too. I agree.
I think, yeah, we got some obvious ones here, Myles.
Let's hold them up. Yeah.
All right. We definitely need some Uncharted. I think that goes without saying.
Yeah.
Climbing in VR works. Shooting in VR works. Climbing ropes. Climbing walls.
I know what it'd be called as well.
What's that?
Uncharted Call of the Mountain.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. There's so much climbing in Uncharted games that it would just feel like another. Yeah, it's crazy. But all the mechanics that we need for an Uncharted game, we've already seen in other VR games already. It all works, and so what they need to do is. My feeling on this is that they would need to craft either a new Uncharted game or really figure out what they're going to do with the cutscenes, because some of those cutscenes are long. And just standing around as Nathan Drake in VR and watching Sully talk to you, I don't think would be all that much fun. But yeah, if you're, they did do a decent job of allowing that story to play out while you're walking through the jungle. Have Sully walking next to you, and while you're just casually looking around, looking for collectibles, doing your thing. The story playing out there, that's when that works, when you're already doing something else and somebody's talking to you. Red Dead, no brainer, right?
Yeah.
We want open world. We want Rockstar games in VR. Common sense. It goes right along with Grand Theft Auto 5, which also came out on PlayStation 3. And less common sense, but a game that I just discovered recently. I use the word discovered loosely because everyone knows about this game. I just never played it until like 2 weeks ago. Dragon's Dogma.
I've actually never played it.
I mean, dude, it won't go into focus, but dude, Dragon's Dogma is like, it's fun, man. Like it's multiplayer, it's RPG, great graphics, amazing bosses, just tons of content. Like the fact that this isn't in VR is driving me nuts. We need it. Oh shit, and Dead Island, because Dead Island is the game I've wanted in VR for so long, right up there with BioShock. Dead Island was just so cool, man, because it kind of gave you, especially the first game. The second game is such a departure, but the first game really feels more like an open world. This island feels connected, and being able to just hop in a truck and drive from one part of it to another after hours of being on foot is just really fucking cool. And I think it would make the melee combat fun. I think it would make I think the entire game would be more fun. Being able to actually take the role of these people, be fun.
That's good ones.
Thank you. All right, you got to have one or two more, right?
Yeah. How about Super Stardust HD? Oh no, we already had that. How about LA Noire? Oh no, we've already had that. Okay, what about the Elder Scrolls 5 Skyrim? All right, joking aside. Next on my list, Mirror's Edge. I know we've got similar games, but Mirror's Edge was on the list just because you want to run and gun. It's a good property. I mean, I know you've got Strider and stuff like that, but I just feel like Mirror's Edge does have a following. I think it could be a good one. Yeah,
I mean, that's why Stride exists. Joy said, well, if you're not going to do it, we're going to do it. And so having the game that influenced the game that we got and actually have it be a full campaign and have it be this full-fledged game that had a lot of money behind it. And dude, again, these games, when they came out, were like, man, these are perfect contenders for VR. And when PlayStation VR 1 was new, I was adamant. I was like, we're obviously going to get Mirror's Edge in VR. Why wouldn't we get Mirror's Edge in VR? This game was made for VR. And for whatever reason, like, I mean, there's obviously just not enough money in it for these big publishers like EA. They're the ones who published Mirror's Edge. For whatever reason, though, we're just not getting them, which is a real shame. It's a real shame because I liked Stride for what it was, but you can't beat the source material.
That's exactly it. I'll just roll off the three I've got left, and then you can pick any that you want to speak on. I got Portal 2 here. I think the original Portal came out on PS3 as well.
They both did, yeah. The first one was in the orange box.
That was it. So Portal. Infamous is a top tier suggestion. Like, oh god, Infamous would be incredible. And then Resistance. I looked at footage of Resistance the other day and just imagined being in that world again in VR. Just be incredible. Standing next to the Chimera. Yeah. Just like towering over you. Playing that multiplayer as well. It'd be so good. But yeah, Infamous, just going around the open world, but like, lifting off the ground with just, the sense controllers. And like, just Infamous feels like such a VR AF experience. Flipping cars and again making it personal. Do you actually feel bad doing the stuff that makes you infamous?
Right.
Actually I felt bad flipping that car and that baby in the pram or whatever you do on there. I can't remember, but or I might do some good things instead. So yeah, I think Infamous would be great.
Yeah, I think Infamous. Yeah, I feel like that's whenever we talk about games from our past that we wish were in VR, that is a perfect one because we always played as Cole or whoever the other character was, second son. Delson Rowe, is that his name was? And you saw him in third person, and it was fine, especially for being that era. I used to enjoy third person games a whole lot more during the PS1, 2, and 3 era, and I slowly started growing out of that. I think VR had something to do with it. But being those characters, and as you said, levitating and feeling that in sense controllers would be the synapse thing where you just feel powerful. These are the kind of things that you can only do in your dreams normally, and allowing you to do it would just be amazing. Shooting things that come out of your hand, amazing. Sliding across electrical lines. I mean, yep.
When we think about, like, you know, Spider-Man, the limitations with like the traversal, the way that Spider-Man moves around, Infamous seems to fit the bit, you know, fit the mold a lot better of going around a city. And the traversal is he's always upright.
Right. It's true.
Yeah. And the power of like just like it's been a while since I played it. Don't you just absorb electricity from shit?
Yeah.
So, like, just point at something and just absorb it. Oh, dude. And like when you just lift people up, like it's the Synapse. Synapse made me feel a bit about it, but Synapse was a lot more clinical because you're in the mind and it's individuals. But like where Infamous, you would feel yourself as you get increasingly powerful, and by the end of it, you'd just be like.
Side controllers would just be vibrating all the time. The headset would be rumbling constantly.
And then at the end of it, you're like, shit.
I'm buzzing.
Yeah. And then by the end of it, you take the headset off and you're like, God, I was a dick. Power really did go to my head, you know?
PTSD immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many good suggestions.
Duke Nukem Forever. Nah.
Nope. No. Who said in the chat? Move Master Mick. Yes, I knew there would be a good cat suggesting this. Beyond Good and Evil, which was a PlayStation 2 game, but I don't think that's out of the question. Beyond Good and Evil was great. Running around as Jade. Oh God, I can't remember the character names. You controlled different vehicles in that game. You ran around. You took a lot of photographs, and there was actually some fun combat too. Yeah, I don't know. This conversation is both really uplifting, Myles, because I have so much more fondness for this era of gaming than I do for the flat screen current era. But also deflating because we're like, man, if I was Jim Ryan, what kind of decisions would I be making? And they're radically different from the decisions that he is making. Although, thank you, it is Jade. Nice. So, but yeah, we don't know what the plans are. They could, all of this stuff could be in the works. Everything we just suggested could be in the works. We don't know enough about what Sony's working on. But don't get your hopes up. I think the message of
PlayStation Showcase, Jim Ryan's there going, now we're going to give you an offering on PlayStation Plus Premium. All the classic titles you've ever loved playing are now all playable in VR.
Phil Pepe, the Game Cat, with a $2 tip, says Dream IP in VR. He says, "Let's go Dragon Ball Z." Dream IP in VR. So this is
Dragon Ball Z is on my top wish list. I want to turn Super Saiyan. I want to turn Super Saiyan in VR and just feel fucking epic. Yeah, agreed.
Dream IP. It's crazy, man. Like, there's so many amazing IPs out there. You know, before 2017, I would have said Resident Evil. Like, absolutely.
Right, yeah.
But now I'm kind of like Silent Hill. Like, it's... Obviously, I'm going to go down the horror route. I definitely want some Aliens games in VR.
The Last of Us. Just The Last of Us. Oh, man. Just the guns feel so good in that game anyway. Just like... And Naughty Dog, like, I know people like to shit on them from time to time, but they have such attention to detail. They're such top tier with everything. Yeah. The sound design of clickers. You know that if they worked on a VR game, they would make it absolutely stellar. They wouldn't put it out until they were happy with it.
Rachel, the Prisoner Game Cat 5863 says, wasn't Ian Hickman's idea for Sony to fund a porting studio to do this? We need to get Ian H in a room with Jim R. Yeah. And, you know, again, this is something that we've been talking about nonstop for like 6 years. And so while, you know, Ian did a great video, but we've also been saying this here for a while. See what I did, Myles? It's all about us.
See.
It's all about us.
Bring it back to us.
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, this is something we've suggested numerous times that Sony has a studio that's dedicated to porting PC. They should have a studio which wouldn't have to be huge. This isn't like we're not talking like AAA, hundreds of developers. We're talking like a room of 20 people who are really good at VR, who really know the ins and outs of these engines, and can make these things work. And they could like 20 dedicated first party employees could probably push out a great VR version of a game every 6 months. I really think that's true, and I think I'm underselling it a little bit. I feel like they could probably do even more than that, but I agree. It's a great idea. It's a great idea. Macho, the real estate procrastinating game cat with a $2 tip says, "You got my vote, Jim Bryan." Oh, I see what he did. He added a B, and now it's me. Okay, you guys ready for the hostile takeover of Sony? Me and Myles are going to go in and take it over hostilely. Hostilely?
Hostilely.
I don't think that's how hostile takeovers work. I don't think you just go and go, we come in, we're taking over. Everyone at your desks.
And then they go, please, exit's just here. And we're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Like we're so sorry for disturbing you.
Yeah, yes. Sorry, Jim Ryan.
Sorry, Miss Receptionist. Didn't mean to bother you. We don't even get to see Jim Ryan. We walk in and we get turned around before we even get in the building.
Yeah.
Hey, Myles.
Hey, Brian.
You ready to play some 20 questions?
I am ready, Brian. Are you ready to guess my game?
I am so ready. I'm going to need everybody's help in the chat, though, because this game's way harder than you think it is. And so I'm going to put 6 minutes up on the clock up on the counter the way that Jeremy likes it. And we're going to play some 20 questions. I got 20 yes or no questions in only 6 minutes to figure out what PlayStation VR1 or PlayStation VR2 game Myles is thinking of. Everybody in the chat, let's do this. On your mark. Get Des. Go.
Whoa.
I'm thinking about it.
Fair. You got all the time you want.
No, I don't think that's true. Did this game come out on PlayStation VR2?
Yes, it did.
All right. Did this game also come out on PlayStation VR1?
No, it didn't.
Okay, so PSVR2 only, you guys. Does this game have a lot of puzzles in it?
Yeah.
Okay. This game played from. Is there any multiplayer in this game at all?
Sorry, say that again. Is there any
multiplayer?
No.
Okay, no multiplayer. Tatum in the chat's wondering, did we mention this game even once today on today's show?
No.
Wow. Okay. Brody's asking if it's a known IP.
No.
Okay. Is this is this game a port of a previously Quest game?
No.
Oh.
Don't think so. No.
Interesting. That eliminates a lot. Looper, good question. Was it a PSVR2 launch title?
No.
Well, we're definitely eliminating large groups of games. So not a PSVR2 launch title. Do you shoot guns in this game?
Yes. You do, but I wouldn't focus on it. 9.
All right, you guys. This is a puzzle game where you do some shooting, but we shouldn't focus on the shooting. It's not on PSVR1. It is PSVR2. Dan Kiefer is asking if you operate vehicles.
No. 10. Okay.
Tatum Red Matter 2 was on Quest. Red Sea Gaming Cosmo Dread was on Quest. Cosmonius High was on Quest. Can you play this on the flat screen as well as in VR?
No, 11.
No. Okay. Rhodey's wondering if it's a roguelike or roguelite. Either one.
No.
No.
12.
Okay.
I wish it were.
Okay. Interesting. Is this retro inspired in any way?
No. 13.
Okay. I think we can eliminate Masternoid, you guys.
Myles is not AJing the fuck out of this. No. I've been very quick on it today. And I did look up for an answer that I normally stifle on early. So I got that as well.
All right, guys. Puzzle game. You do some shooting. Puzzle. Markio, he wouldn't do that, would he?
He wouldn't do what?
Do you do any math in this game?
Yeah, you do some math in this game.
I hate you so much, Myles. I hate you so much. Myles is Markio, you're amazing. Myles, is this Math World VR?
It is Math World VR, Brian.
Oh my god.
On after 14 questions. Yeah, nice one, man.
I would never would have gotten this. Thank you, Markio.
Dude, as soon as I saw him ask it, I wrote down his name and the math game. I'll kind of give it to him as the first one to guess it. But yeah, as soon as I heard you say it, that's why I laughed. If I hadn't seen it, I would have covered it up a lot better.
This game is terrible. And my favorite thing about this game is that you recently tried to go for the platinum and found out that it's broken.
So I spent like half an hour doing some pretty good maths. And then I lost all my, it was like a roguelite. Every time you start the game, start from scratch. You
do shoot
has
some
better
guns.
Basketball mechanics than Down and Out, though.
But only mildly.
No, I'd say it's a lot better.
Doesn't it kind of launch from your hand? Like, then it's like...
A little bit, but I don't know. The first one, the carnival darts,
yeah,
that is really difficult. But then once you get the hang of it, I mean, the strategy is you go for the bottom row and then you start working up. Just so if it misses it and goes below, you're not going to hit an odd number when you need an even number. Just for anyone that wants to take notes on how to.
I can't believe you've
become a math wizard.
Strategies on Math World.
Well, it is. It's important when you're learning maths.
I think you need to make a tip video. For all the people just starting out in Math World,
that's true. True.
You know, people think people don't know what to do. There's a lot to take in.
Although I will say, I did actually make a tip video this week that I just posted on Twitter. It's not something for my own channel, although I might do it as a story post. But it's for the Platinum of Survive. So anyone that wants to go for the Platinum Survive, it's really hard to grind that level 60. Sometimes I would spend 15 minutes with friends and go up a level. Other times I'd spend an hour with friends and not even go up a level. I found a way of going up a level pretty much every 3 to 5 minutes. So I've posted it in the Survive channel on Without Parole's Discord. Go join it. But yeah, anyone else that is working on that, hopefully that helps you out.
Myles, thank you so much for hanging out with me. I know you still got to get some packing done. You got to get out of here. You got to leave the country and come to my country. Safe travels, my friend, man. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thanks, man. It's good. No, I'm going to be packing straight after this. There's some VR games I just want to keep playing, but I should pack and then see how I do. And then I'm scared of like oversleeping the alarm. Although my flight's at 2:20 in the afternoon, so it's not too bad. Flying with American Airlines should be cool.
2:20 in the afternoon. That's amazing, actually. I feel like I'm always flying out at like 5 a.m., 4 a.m. It's like I've got to go to bed I've got to wake up before I go to bed usually. But
I land in Birmingham, Alabama at 4:20 in the morning my time. So it's gonna
got him.
Yeah. But actually, something I would request any Game Cats to recommend, and just put it on the Discord in the Ask Miles section, is I'm always paranoid when going on flights with like entertainment. So I have YouTube. I have YouTube Premium, so I'm able to download YouTube videos onto my phone. So when I'm not connected to the internet, but also like a lot of mobile games these days, you need an internet connection to play them, which is really annoying. So if anyone has any good mobile games they'd recommend for iOS that you don't need an internet connection for, anything to keep me occupied. I kind of wish the Friday show was someone else hosting and it went on for like 4 hours and then I could have listened to it tomorrow. I'm not listening to my own show tomorrow. And I've already watched the AJ and West one. But yeah, any podcasts or stuff like that, any suggestions, would really appreciate it. Well, I just take my PSVR2 with me. Set it up.
Just going to sit on the plane with the PSVR2 plugged in.
PS5. I'll just slot it there.
Right. Just
play some Hellsweeper.
Run a power
take
cable
off the headset and
cabin.
everyone around me's got black eyes.
Nice.
Oh, look at that tip. Brian, the best influence on YouTube.
VR Spaceman with the 729 Titan AEs. AED.
Don't know what that is.
I'm not even sure.
But that's awesome.
Brian, the best influencer on YouTube. Thank you so much, VR Spaceman. That's very sweet of you to say. We know it's not true, but we still love you for saying
it. It is true.
I could never compete with you. And Silver Nexus with the level 3 membership says, take care, be merry, and game on, Game Cats. Thank you, everybody, for being here and spending your Friday evening with us. It always means a lot. A lot of stuff going down. A lot of games to be talking about soon. A lot of games coming out over the next month. It's going to be crazy. The 100K subscriber milestone is going to be happening soon as well. Within, I mean, I guess about the next 2 weeks or so, if things stay on the current trajectory. I've got a plan. I really want to make a special video for you guys. Hopefully, I can find time over the next week to do it. It's going to be a big deal for the channel. Big deal for me. Be a huge. A huge point that I just can't believe this has been going on for so long. If you asked me 7 years ago, 8 years ago when we started this thing, I would be like, I have no aspirations to ever hit 100,000. It's a big deal. So I appreciate you guys all for being here, for subscribing, for clicking the like button, for subscribing to Myles and all my other co-hosts. You're all amazing. Thank you to everybody. How's this channel run? Dude, I am so done. What just happened? Like my brain fizzled out. Sci-Fi Game Kit, Henry, Rypop, all the moderators. Everybody supports the channel financially over here on YouTube by being a YouTube member, and everyone on patreon.com/withoutparole Thanks to everybody who tips during the show. You guys keep the lights on. You all keep the lights on. I appreciate you. And everybody who hangs out, helps with 20 questions. Mark you, that was crazy. And everybody who sits back and watches the show and doesn't say a goddamn word. We know you're out there. We love you just as much. Happy Friday, Myles.
Happy Friday, Brian. Happy Friday, Game Cats. Have a great weekend and all the best.
Myles, I wasn't prepared for today's show at all, and so I don't have a clip of the week ready.
And I had a one.
Oh no, but that's okay because because I've been meaning to start doing clip of the week, more than just on Friday. So we can do this next week, and we'll see what happens. But I did want to look back into Without Parole history, into these thumbnails, because we've been doing GAMESCAST for a few years now. And what I like to do is look back and say, well, it's September 22nd today. And so I see this hold screen that we're looking at, the thumbnail. What should we do? Should we go back to... We can go back to, I don't know, September 22nd, 2021. Let's see. I can't even see what it is. Oh man, we were hurting. We were hurting so much. This is September 22nd, 2021. All we had to talk about was the Saints and Sinners DLC, Aftershocks, plus Puzzle Bobble 3D, probably some Beat Saber DLC.
Oh my god.
Oh my goodness. Aftershocks. We're excited for a DLC.
That is a trip down memory lane. Brian, man.
Yeah.
Some people have mentioned it in the chat. If you are able to, it's a really short clip. I've given you the Discord link. I don't know if it's going to work. If we can get this up. This was when doing the Alvo live stream, and it is a perfect demonstration of why we can't have nice things on live streams. I don't know if you've seen this, but basically,
I have seen this. Give me a second, and I will absolutely be able to get this up and running.
That's cool. I'll just I'll queue it up while you set it up.
Cool.
Basically, the risk when you live stream and you're playing with other randoms online is you don't know what they're going to say, and sometimes people can say some really horrible stuff. And there was a guy that every sentence was saying the F word, oh, the effing turret, effing, and it was just absolutely hilarious. And then Steve from Alvo was in the chat and said, oh, you can mute them individually. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that. So muted them all, and that was it. And then in this clip was when I was just saying to the chat, oh, should we unmute him and give him another chance? Yeah, let's do that. And shame on me.
Love it. All right, man. I don't know if this is going to appear in the correct place or anything because I wasn't prepared for this, but let's see what happens. Perfect.
Hey guys, should we see if UMC has calmed down with his swearing yet? I'll unmute him. Here we go, guys.
I don't give a fuck.
Okay. I've muted him again. That was... You got to clip that.
Yeah. No, that was worth it. That was absolutely worth it.
Because everyone relates to it. It just the timing was perfect. Because all in the lead up to it, the question I had was, because my friend Johnny was in there and he wasn't muted. And I was like, oh, when you mute people, can they hear you still? Because can he hear me going, yeah, I've muted him now? And that really annoyed him. And then it turned out not. And then when that happened, the timing was just so perfect. I was like, oh, okay. No, that's why I muted him.
Yeah.
That's why we can't have nice things.
It's like when it's so funny because occasionally somebody will, be absolutely ridiculous in the comments and I'll have to ban them or something in the comment section of Without Parole. And people don't know when they're banned, right? Because the idea with the ban thing is that they'll leave a comment and they're the only one that can see it. And so they'll just continue participating, leaving comments, negative comments, negative messages in the chat, and they're the only one who can see it. And so it's so funny when, every year I give everyone another chance. I go, you know what? It's probably time to go back in and unblock everybody. And it's so funny that a day after I unblock a bunch of people, I see the same names pop up with the same fucking negativity and awful shit that they got banned for the first time. So it's like they've been doing it the whole time. And it's like I just get to catch this quick little glimpse into what they've been typing all of this time, and they have no idea that no one else has been able to see it but them. And it feels like what we just saw was the video game equivalent of that.
Right.
Okay,
this is why we can't have nice things.
Fucking long-winded, man. All right, I'm so done. Macho in the chat says, "LOL, never ban me, Brian." Don't worry, man. I unban everybody.
No promises. No promises.
Yeah, I always feel bad. I feel so bad about banning people that I can't ban them forever. I just need to make them disappear for 6 months or so just so I can deal. Mr. Tortoise, the Game Turtle, says, "Shit, I'm probably banned." I guess that's proof you're not. And with that, have a wonderful night.